education sector is undergoing a continuous progressive process. As conventional teaching methods are experiencing a major shift towards student-centric and more inclusive learning, educational technology has combined the use of computer technology and educational theory practice to facilitate learning and academic performance. Nahdat Masr is and has been the pioneer in learning combination over the past 85 years. It has evolved into becoming the regional icon of knowledge and a globally recognized provider of integrated and innovative digital learning publishing solutions. Nahdat Masr has recognized the essential role EdTech plays in enriching the first corporate venture capital specializing in EdTech. EdVentures incubates, accelerates, and invests in educational and cultural startups. Since 2017, it has supported 66 startups and entrepreneurs and invested in 13 startups, whom are now recognized among the most impactful startups in education in the region. Today, we celebrate with you 5 years of success. As we are focused on creating sustainable change and transformation, today we welcome for the first time in Egypt, HolonIQ Global Impact Summit. HolonIQ has been well recognized as the world's leading platform for impact marketing intelligence, powering decisions that matter in climate, education, and healthcare, in aim to create a more inclusive and sustainable future. HolonIQ Annual Impact Summit has been for the past years connecting leading minds around the world, including educators,
تفاؤل، واللي بيوصلنا للمستقبل ده مجموعة نهضة مصر. أكثر من 85 سنة كفاح وعمل مستمر في كل مجالات التنوير علشان نبني إنسان قادر على النمو والتطوير. كانت انطلاقة البداية في 1938 كدار نشر صغيرة لطباعة الكتب الثقافية والتعليمية، واختارت لشعارها اسم وتمثال سمة العصر اللي بنعيشه. كان لازم نخلي أولادنا مستعدين للمستقبل. كونا أكبر فريق عمل بيقدم حلول تعليمية رقمية في الشرق الأوسط، وعملنا شركة متخصصة في تطوير برمجيات التعليم. ولأن المعلم من أهم ركائز العملية التعليمية، بنقدم له برامج تطوير وتدريب مهني مختلفة ترفع من كفاءته وتأهله لبناء أجيال قادمة. وخلال مشوارنا الطويل قمنا بإثراء الحياة الثقافية في عالمنا العربي من خلال نشر آلاف الكتب الثقافية والأعمال الأدبية لأبرز الكتاب لكل عصر. اهتمينا جدا بنشر الأطفال، وبنقدم لهم مجموعة كبيرة من الكتب العربية المؤلفة وترجمة عربية لأشهر الناشرين العالميين. ولأن هويتنا هي البوصلة اللي بتنور الطريق، اهتمينا دايما بلغتنا العربية، بتراثنا وثقافتنا، وبنقدم ده من خلال كتبنا الثقافية. كمان عملنا تطبيق اتكلم عربي اللي بيقرب أولادنا المصريين اللي عايشين بره من ثقافة بلادهم، واللي اتعلم واتطور وبيبدأ حياته برضه احنا في ظهره وبكل ما نملك معاه علشان يحقق الحلم اللي بيتمناه. في 2017 أسسنا HolonIQ، أول شركة رأس مال مخاطر في الشرق الأوسط متخصصة في مجال تكنولوجيا التعليم، واللي من خلالها بندعم رواد الأعمال وبنساعد الشباب علشان يتطور، يبتكر، يكبر ويدخل الأسواق المحلية والعالمية بكل ثقة. وفي كل مرحلة ومع كل سنة بتمر عينينا على بلادنا. عشان كده أسسنا في 2021 شركة تأهيل اللي من خلالها بنقدم حلول تعليمية في قطاع التعليم الفني والتدريب المهني بالتعاون مع كبرى الهيئات العالمية والمحلية. وبكده بنساهم في حل مشكلة البطالة وبنحقق رؤية بلادنا للتنمية المستدامة. مهمتنا ورسالتنا مش مقتصرة على بلادنا بس، لكنها ممتدة لكافة شعوبنا العربية ومختلف دول العالم. ولسه مكملين الرحلة بخطوات ثابتة للمستقبل، لأننا مؤمنين إن الإنسان هو رأس المال الحقيقي لتطوير أي أمة. نهضة مصر، بنبني إنسان يبني حضارة.
"85 years of success." Please welcome on stage for the opening speech Ms. Dalia Ibrahim, CEO of Nahdat Masr Publishing House and founder.
الرحمن الرحيم. ازي حضراتكم؟ مشرفينا ومنورينا النهارده. احتفاليه النهارده ناقصها اعز شخص على قلبي، الوالد، هو بس مسافر، فهو باعت لحضراتكم تحيه كبيره جدا وبيعتذر عن عدم الحضور علشان شركاتنا الاجانب كان صعب ان احنا ناجل ايفنت علشان هم عندهم سفر، بس هو دايما حاضر معانا، ربنا يبارك في صحته وعمره. والنهارده مشرفنا عمي الغالي ابراهيم، تحيه لحضرتك. انا بدات بالعربي ارحب بحضراتكم لان هي دي لغتنا الام، واحنا متشرفين ان احنا مصريين وعرب، بس احتراما لزملائنا الاجانب هنكمل معظم الايفنت باللغه الانجليزيه، بس كان لازم كلمة الترحيب تبقى الأول بلغتنا. فأهلا وسهلا بحضراتكم مرة تانية. وأحب أكد على حضراتكم برضو إن في سماعات على الترابيزات علشان لو أي حد محتاج يتأكد إن هو فاهم كل حاجة بتتقال بالظبط باللغة الإنجليزية، في ترجمة عربي إنجليزي وإنجليزي عربي، فأي حد محتاج السماعات دي موجودة على الترابيزة بتاعته أو يطلب من الشباب الأشرز إن هم يدوهم سماعة من السماعات. أهلا وسهلا بكم مرة تانية. I'll switch to English. We are very happy to host you today in such a very important event for us. This is our 5th anniversary with Adventures 5 years ago, we were on the similar stage announcing the establishment of our new company, Adventures, a corporate venture capital that supports EdTech startups in the MENA region and worldwide very soon, inshallah. We also would like to welcome all of you, welcome our partners, HolonIQ. They have been partners with us for 2.5 years. It was a great honor to have this event together and to have your global Impact Summit in Egypt, hosted by Adventures today. And all our guests, you are more than welcomed. I hope you enjoy this evening together. Let's start the presentation. Okay, we have to click on which side? شباب؟ لا الناحية دي بص كده. تمام. Allow me to take you through a journey, our journey, the journey of Nahdat Masr Group. Nahdat Masr Group started 85 years ago. Actually, I have to click this side. Yes. Nahdat Masr journey started 85 years ago. It was established by my grandfather, Ahmed Ibrahim, 1938. Actually, through this journey of 85 years, we were very keen and very dedicated in spreading knowledge across the whole Arab region, not only Egypt, and empowering our people from the very early years of childhood up to 99 years old, fostering values, which is very important for us. Values are a key thing in our country, in Nahdat Masr Group, in all what we provide to the whole society. Meaningful lives, when we have knowledge, good knowledge and good education, definitely we will have a very good life and much, much better than just not understanding ourselves, our environment, and having the power of education to improve. Commitment. We have been always committed to our country. Sorry? The clicker? Thank you. Sorry for this. We have been always committed through the 85 years since my grandfather, my father, my uncles, and my cousins and brothers and sisters, and all my brothers and sisters in the group. They are not employees. They are not only business partners, but they are really, all of them are one family. And this is the way I was brought up, that we are all one family. We are always committed to the society, to our people, and to what we provide for the whole community. Risk-taking. Risk-taking has been one of the things that I was brought up through my father's decision. Through the journey of our work, there were very tough decisions. One of them actually is 24 years ago when he decided to establish the first software company in publishing and EdTech. This was 1998 in our region. This was totally new. And actually we had great losses at this time for years and years. But it turned back to be a very good decision and a very wise one. So we took the learning journey of EdTech and technology and software development and all the challenges. So for this, we became leaders in our field. So leadership does not come like this. It needs courage, it needs investment, it needs risk-taking. And this actually what has been the journey that I've been through with my great family and my father. Leadership is not only leadership in the market and in the products that we and services that we provide, but leadership in the team that we have. We have great leaders in the whole group of organizations. These leaders led to Nahdat Masr being #1 publishing group in the region with all what it provides from digital content, animation, education content, curriculum development, media, etc. And rich legacy. I'm here standing in front of you with a great name called Nahdat Masr. Nahdat Masr, I want to tell you the meaning of it. It means the Renaissance of Egypt. And this was really meant when my grandfather selected this name. It's the Renaissance of Egypt, and now our vision and mission is the Renaissance of the whole Arab world and the whole region. So it is a mission with a great with a great legacy. And through 85 years, I believe that this name has represented good quality of content and knowledge across the whole Arab region. تمام كده؟ We serve 16 million students in Egypt alone with our printed and digital material. In Egypt, there is 22 K-12 children that are in the school level, and we, through Nahdat Masr, serve 16 million of them. How this happens is through our educational curriculum textbooks to Ministry of Education. We actually are part of the new reform of Education 2.0, and we develop with the Ministry of Education 101 textbook from grade K to 5, and we have other material for secondary and preparatory. These are printed materials beside our digital content. This is not only what we provide in the market, but we have a very well-known, a great brand called El Adwa. I believe all the Egyptians here know Al Adwa quite well. It has been in the market for 55 years. It covers from K to 12, all subjects. It covers math, science, social studies, Arabic, English, etc., religion, everything from K to 12. We produce annually 196 titles that are every year we upgrade these books, revise them, we make market research, and we have a new version annually. We print millions of copies annually for the Ministry of Education and for the market through Al Adwa supplementary series. I believe I have to do this. Aywa. Through the journey of 85 years, we managed to have curriculum development in 11 Arab world countries, and we are honored that we are part of the reform and education reform in Egypt again. Of course, it's very important to work with international partners. So we have our local content and we have international content through our international big publishers that we provide across the whole region. Definitely, when we talk about education, we have to think of professional development. It is impossible to have good curriculum without good teachers. So this is part of what we actually offer through the group of Nahdat Masr companies, the 8 companies. We provide professional development in Egypt and other markets across the region, face-to-face and online professional development programs. Vocational education. As all of you who are interested in the MENA region, all of you know quite well the gap between the unemployment and the workforce. So there is a huge gap in vocational education, and we took this initiative by starting by ourselves in our printing house 6 years ago by having Academy for Printing, and then we worked on developing our own content for Ministry of Education and for our company, the afield, our 8th company in the group specialized in education, vocational education and training. And we have thousands of cultural books, children books, fiction, non-fiction. And we have international partners that we cooperate with them, like Disney and National Geographic, in books and magazines, and even digital content. We had 59 awards, regional international awards for our books. And our journey did not stop here. On the contrary, there was a lot of challenges. All of you, of course, know these challenges. We have been through our journey concentrating on the impact. We always think of making impact, of how to continue make impact during this disruptive time in the whole world, not only in our region. Doing impact for us is through several aspects, through affecting our community and people, affecting the community through education, and definitely making an impact in our business. So to reach this, we, in spite of all the changes that's happening worldwide, the technology, EdTech, and all the mobiles and social media and all this stuff, there is a lot of disruption in the market. To keeping the impact and at the same time focusing on education, we actually thought of having a corporate venture capital which was Adventures, that we are celebrating today 5 years of Adventures. Taking you through the impact of Adventures very quickly, we work on 3 different aspects for impact. One of them is Adventures' impact in EdTech landscape. We provide online tutoring through Adventures, career advising, training programs, vocational education, coding and programming courses. Not only this, but also we work on empowering women, learning management systems, environmental education and awareness programs, language learning, upskilling programs. This is some of what our startups that we are celebrating their presence are doing. It's not only what we are doing, this is what our startups, great startups, are doing and giving to our society. These startups and Adventures made a great impact on the society. We supported 66 startups up till now. These startups created 1,400 jobs on the ground. One of our startup, eYouth, managed to train 800,000 students and get them ready to work. And iSchool managed to train 10,000 children on coding and programming. Akhdar managed to reach out for 1,400,000 users with their summaries of the best books worldwide. OTO managed to train 40,000 students English language courses. OBM managed to train 200,000 students to be ready for which university to go to. Superfanny managed also to train 35,000 trainees and to get ready for work with 90% recruitment rate. Career 180 managed to support 80,000 graduates to find their own jobs. Entrepreneur supported thousands of ladies to start their own business. Crafty supported 3,000 artists to have their own crafts and business. These are our startups that we are celebrating today. This is Adventures. On the business, this also had a great impact on the group of Nahdat Masr. Any corporate venture should work on these 4 main advantages: strategic, financial, commercial, and information. Strategic, we would never ever have fulfilled all these gaps by ourselves. Yes, it's 8 companies, but still not enough. With Adventures, we managed to reach out for more customers, for more people, to support and change the life of a lot of people. So strategically, they filled a lot of gaps that we had never been able to do it by ourselves. Financially, most of these startups had 2nd and 3rd round of investment, and they are profitable. And this is really amazing. They are doing a great job. Commercial advantages, we sometimes in the region, we have mega projects that we cannot fulfill by ourselves. So we work hand in hand with our startups, and we submit proposals, and we take projects, and we do it together. So we fill the gaps to the customer fully with our integrated solution as one unit. Information advantage, we actually work with not only local startups, but international ones. This year alone, from Jan till November, we have reached out to 319 startups in the region and worldwide. This actually gives us a good insight about what is happening worldwide and the new trends, and help us also to invest early in these new companies. So Nahdat Masr was 8 companies. Now, with Adventure, it became 20. Nahdat Masr used to provide all these services. With Adventure, it is covering more services to the whole community. Instead of 10, we have 20 and more. We are going global. Our target this year is not only Arab word, it's international startups. And inshallah, in the coming 6 months, you are going to hear about international partnerships and investment in startups. Thank you.
From national to international, going globally, well done. And now, on HolonIQ, the mission, the vision, and the journey, please welcome on stage Ms. Maria Spies, co-CEO of HolonIQ, and Mr. Patrick Brothers, co-CEO of HolonIQ.
If we could start our presentation, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is really a pleasure to be here today. My name is Maria Spies. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of HolonIQ, along with my co-CEO, Patrick Brothers. It is truly a delight to be here in Cairo, and I want to pay special homage to our partners, Adventures. And Ms. Dahlia said it very well, that to make a big impact, really you can't do it alone. Partnerships and collaborations are the way of the future. And we're very proud to have such a strong partnership with Adventures.
So this event, as was mentioned, is part of a global 100 Days of Impact. We started in New York, the week of the UN General Assembly. We were in Mexico City. We travelled to Bangalore, Melbourne, Singapore, Jakarta. We held virtual summits for Sub-Saharan Africa and for East Asia as part of those adventures as well. Of course, we're here at COP27 earlier this week and now in Cairo, next week in London, the following week in Paris, Berlin, and finally in Stockholm for a truly exhausting 100 days of impact around the world. None of this would be possible without partners, and as we've mentioned a number of times, we're very proud to have built a strong partnership over the last 2.5 years with Adventures. Our global presenting partners for our global summits, Google Cloud, and also Luminous Life Plus, based out of Jordan, and scaling, regional innovation around the world to transform the way the world learns as well. We do this with many partners all around the world who make this possible to reach as many people. We've had over 500 speakers around the world who are so generous to share their expertise and their time, and a global community of, including today, over 5,000 leaders around the world who are transforming education, climate and health.
But really, let's zoom back out. What's today about? What are we talking about here? There's two things, really. The planet and people. And we take a high-level view. We look at things from the very top and analyse data. But actually, at the end of the day, it's people who make a difference. It's the actions they take or don't take, the decisions they make or don't make, that make all the difference in the world. And as we kicked off our global summits in New York was the time of the UN General Assembly, and everybody uses and talks about the Sustainable Development Goals. You need a framework, a language to start talking about making an impact. For us, we focus on education, climate and health. They're our three areas of focus, and we think represent the most important decisions and actions that the world can take right now. In order to try to map and track those markets, we have developed 3 open source frameworks. Climate technology, and so we map the whole climate tech landscape. Every startup, every piece of capital that goes into climate tech can be mapped to this open source landscape, and the same in education technology and the same in health tech.
So over the next 20 minutes, we're going to share some insights across these 6 areas that cut across those 3 areas. And of course, education is fundamental to all of them. Let's start with population. This is the world's population since 10,000 BCE. So the pyramids are somewhere about here. And you can see just how explosive the growth and how recent growth in global population has been. It took for all of history until 1803 to reach our first billion, and it's taken about 12 years to add every subsequent billion quite recently, and it's starting to slow down a little as we look over time. Not familiar to everyone is where those nearly 9 billion people are, and you can see this map of the world is resized to show the global population, which is a little bit more intuitive for those of us who are closer to that. Something we've learned throughout our summits is not everybody appreciates that it's actually Africa that takes over global growth over the back half of the century that we're in. Asia actually starts to taper as we look out for population forecasts towards the end of the century. So all long-term strategic eyes are actually starting to focus on Africa. When we think about education and we zoom back in to 2050, if that's zooming back in, we see that we'll add about 2 billion learners to the world between now and 2050. If you thought our education systems were stressed today, add 2 billion more learners to that system. We have to transform the way the world learns in order to support the people we have today and the 2 billion more learners that we will bring into education systems around the world.
The other area of focus, of course, is the planet and what's happening to the world right now in terms of sustainability and climate change. And so this chart shows these annual CO2 emissions from fossil fuels by region. Really, it's only been since 1950 that those emissions have skyrocketed, and you can see that how that cuts down by different geographies. And so the world has, since 1950, been on this path, and it's not really slowing down. It's slowing down a little bit, but we've come a long way since 1950. We really need to do something about this as a globe. What most people don't appreciate is that actually the food system is responsible for approximately 1/4 of global emissions. And so we have made changes to our food system, the way that what we do to the planet in terms of livestock and fish, crops, land use for human food. So there is a real imperative to innovate our food systems, because what's happening there is it is causing those 1/4 of those emissions. And at the same time, of course, related to that is that 20% of the world's forests have already disappeared and been lost, and you can see there that 31% of that was due to grazing, or 16% from crops. Again, it's our food system that is not only taking a large chunk of global emissions, but also our forests are disappearing, and that's our carbon sinks. That's where all the carbon goes. And so we've really got to change our way of thinking and our way of acting in terms of our food processes. This chart shows the average temperature of the world by month since 1890, and you can see there at the 0% and +1%. And so this is a chart that shows that average temperature, and you can see it's getting hotter and it's going faster. It's getting hotter more quickly. As that graph tips, you can really see what's happening there in terms of climate, in terms of temperature change.
So let's zoom out and look at the economy in which all of this is happening. Just to recap on some really big numbers to put things into perspective. On the left-hand side, if you added up the value of all the residential real estate in the world, it would be about $250 trillion. All of the debt in the world that's listed, about 120 trillion. Global GDP, about 100 trillion. You can see here healthcare, energy and education add up to about 20 trillion, or about close to 1/3 of global GDP. These are very significant parts of the global economy, aside from the impact they're having on the planet. One of the things we do to focus on innovation in these areas, and later this evening we'll be announcing the MENA EdTech 50. This is part of a global initiative to identify the top 1,000 startups in education, healthcare and in climate. And we do that by region because we want to understand the innovation that's happening in each part of the world to share around the world. This is from our platform, our technology. Each one of these bubbles represents one of those 3,000 impact startups, and they're coloured according to the taxonomy that Maria shared. Green is climate, blue is education and red is health. They're connected if they have similar business models or similar technologies. And through this machine learning, we can start to reveal patterns. Where is Egypt strong? Where is Egypt weak? Where are the gaps in the Middle East and North Africa? Where is there strong connections as well? How does that compare to other regions of the world? What other patterns are we seeing that we can all learn from and share? And of course, this is fundamental as to why we lead.
Spread between climate, education, and of course across healthcare as well.
The other thing to consider, of course, is capital, because innovation often doesn't happen without capital. And so this chart shows the venture capital that's been injected into education, health and climate tech over the last, in 2021. And you can see the growth there. So we're looking at about just over $100 billion of venture capital, that's growth money, going into education, health and climate. Education here around $17 billion, climate technology $40 billion, and healthcare coming up to $75 billion in venture capital funds. So there's definitely interest in innovation. As we sort of pull that apart and segment that capital by that taxonomy I talked about before, what we see here is the larger the square, the more capital, essentially. And so here in climate tech, renewables on the left-hand side, solar particularly, in the third column, storage, batteries, a lot of money going into that space, and then ag and food in the middle, crops and meat and seafood as we go on to circular economy, data and finance, and mobility right at the end is also getting a lot of capital. In education, the management system in the middle here, management systems have had a huge injection over the last couple of years. The schools and universities are struggling because they don't have the infrastructure. New education models, boot camps, OPMs and other models are gaining traction. And then in the middle there is experiencing learning, STEAM and coding, virtual reality games and simulation, and as we move on to learning support tutoring, of course, and right at the very end is upskilling and workforce. So huge need as the labour markets change. In healthcare, you can see here, prevention, diagnosis and treatment in the first three columns take about a third of the venture capital over the last 6 months in the first half of 2022, and then through, again, to infrastructure for health systems, health analytics, health records, bookings and referrals, and then hardware, imaging, medical devices, and on the very end there in the yellow is research. And so this is clinical insights and discovery, a lot of venture capital going into innovating in that space, which is obviously very important.
A conversation about capital wouldn't be complete without looking at the capital markets. This is the largest 50 stocks around the world. Apple is valued at about $2.5 trillion. Obviously it depends on which day or week at the moment. They're coloured green if they have a positive or negative impact on climate, and red for healthcare as well. We have to go about 1,000 companies down this chart to get to education. Education is starved of capital. It has to access private capital more to grow. We've been starting to index government contracts. Obviously, they're critical, mapping supply chains in education, health and climate. We found 11 million contracts in North America and Europe over the last 10 years, and you can see here some of the change in green contracts as we look at government patterns in investing in climate in specific areas such as renewables, circular economy and the like as well. Much to discover in trying to understand supply chains.
Advancements in technology have a very, very big role to play in innovation and new models. And so here we see that across health tech, climate tech and ed tech, about $1 trillion worth of annual expenditure in these areas and growing. And so, more, not just investment, but spend in these areas can help to innovate. Artificial intelligence is one of those technologies. And what we see is artificial intelligence being used around the edges of our industries, but starting to make its way into core workflow. This is a company out of Germany. This is a sales training tool, and as the recipient of the sales process is being analysed for their reactions, and also the sales trainer can get feedback on their own way of promoting those conversations. And so we are starting to see artificial intelligence make its way into absolutely core processes. This is live. This happens in tutoring and right now as well.
We've recently refreshed our analysis on artificial intelligence in the impact sectors. We asked our global audience, where do you see the highest potential for impact from AI? You can see in vision AI, it was healthcare. In voice, it was healthcare, slowly followed by education. All areas, climate, education and health, see potential in natural language processing, but machine learning was the highest area that they perceived there would be potential across impact. As we looked across our taxonomy, we asked, where do you think we will likely see that impact? In climate, it was in renewables, the biosphere and food systems. In education, language learning and testing and assessment. And in healthcare, it was diagnosis, health systems, and of course in advanced biotech as well. We also asked, what was the reason for adopting artificial intelligence? And across all those areas it was impact. In climate it was reducing emissions, in health it was patient outcomes, in education it was learner outcomes. But interestingly, the second consistent reason was to reduce cost and cost savings from automation.
And I mean, really, you would know better than anyone, you can innovate, but you really need to measure outcomes of that innovation. And so we undertake quite a lot of work on measuring outcomes, and when we're asking our companies all around the world, what do you need in order to better evidence outcomes of your innovations, the top reason was partnerships. They want more partnerships with researchers, academics and institutions, which is wonderful because we need to connect these different parts of the ecosystem. Of course, funding and learning from other companies, again, those partnerships are very important. We also look at outcomes in terms of diversity, particularly gender diversity. And so every year we map where women's leadership is heading in terms of education, climate and health. And you can see here that still only 1% of CEOs at the time of IPO for public companies are women. And as we move, heads of state, still only 1%. Unicorns, fintech, as we move along, even in the Fortune 500, 7% female leaders. And through to our HolonIQ EdTech 1000, 9%, but still we need to improve these diversity outcomes. As we move through and see in regular sort of positions, we do see more women, but they're not making their way into those leadership positions.
At the end of the summits, we'll be launching our Global Impact Index, which is a new initiative from HolonIQ to measure how countries are supporting their people and their planet. We are looking at 5 areas to measure every country and score them and rank them. We look across climate and sustainability, education and workforce, health and well-being, equity and governance, and technology. And you can see here some of the indicators that we've chosen to measure countries, from emissions through to air quality, forest change, secondary enrolment rates, vulnerable employment, life expectancy, suicide, prison populations, inequality, governance, voice and accountability, corruption, through to technology access, and finally how strong, not how large, how strong that economy is as well.
So we've zoomed right down into these issues, and now I'm pulling us back right out to the three areas that we focus on, which is education, health and climate. And so this has been just a primer. The important conversations today are going to be conversations. We know from the last couple of years that the most important the importance of human connections, because we missed out on them for a long time. So I would encourage you to make the most of this time today together, and thank you for your attention to our presentation.
It's such a privilege to come and share global insights and to learn from all of you. And I would now like to invite Ms. Dalia Ibrahim back up to the stage to share her reflections on the Middle East, on Africa, from a regional perspective as well. Thank you so much. Shukran.
Allow me to thank our partners again, HolonIQ, for great insights, great effort, great research, amazing information, helping each one of us in our industry. Actually, this information is again from HolonIQ. I'm just presenting our region and giving some insights why these statistics are like this from our point of view and our experience in the market. As you can see, from the 1,500 startups of EdTech in the MENA region, HolonIQ found out, with the support of Adventures, that the workforce startups cover almost 50% of the startups in our ecosystem. This has a great indicator. I believe all of you, if you just think about it for 1 minute, you will notice why. There is a huge gap between the workforce and employment. There is a big gap between the graduates or universities and the workforce. So there was a great opportunity for startups to fill up this gap very quickly. And in the same time, when you reflect on the old data of last year, after COVID, in the United States, you will find that also 50% of the venture capital supported the same sector. So it's a gap worldwide. And we have here one of the mega companies and one of the unicorn, Coursera, is presented by your presence. Thank you for being here. And you fill this gap with internationally. You are welcome, sir. In the MENA region also, we have still a great opportunity in K-12. And we can see the difference between K-12 and higher education. It's not that easy to develop solutions for higher education, because higher education to a great extent is fragmented. K-12, it's usually the country follows same curriculum, same policy, and when the government decides, the Ministry of Education, that it's going to adapt certain solution, it can give approval for all schools to apply it, and sometimes it's acquired by the government, it's applied all over, this in Egypt and all other Arab countries. But for the higher education, even if the Minister of Higher Education accepts a certain solution, you have to go university by university to convince them, because the decision making is not centralized. So it's really difficult to support higher education. For this, K-12 has a greater opportunity. Pre-K, as you can see, has a huge opportunity. For years and years in our market, we were not looking at this segment or this age group. Although internationally all the studies proved that this age is very critical in the human being development. If you work and develop children at early age, they will have a better future, better understanding, better psychology, better characteristics, etc. So this is a great opportunity for everyone who is interested to start an education or education technology startup. Think about this group age. And here is a more characterized breakdown for the startups in our ecosystem. As you can see, HolonIQ has great categories for each segment. And as you can see again, for example, the workforce, when you look at each category, upskilling, we have management systems, we have coding and programming, we have a lot of things. I believe that this chart specifically should be studied by each startup and each company who works in edtech and education to know where are the gaps. There are things that already covered tremendously, like the things related to online tutoring, to courses, to workforce, and so on, but there are still a lot of gaps missing that we can fulfill with new startups. As you can see, Egypt represents number one country with the largest number of startups in the region, among the top 50 that's going to be announced today, followed by UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. Again, this is another distribution of the startups in the region among the top 50, representing the 1,500 startups. I believe that this chart is a complementary for the one I have just telling you about. You need to study this thoroughly. You can see the weight of each category that HolonIQ distributes, from content, from management system, and from STEM, and from advanced technology. There are sectors that have a lot of startups in it, as you can see, and there are other sectors that still have great opportunity for growth. As you can see here also is that most of the companies work B2C. 74% of the startups provide the service directly B2C. Also, we need to think about why this is happening. And is this globally, across the whole world, or not? I believe it's more sustainable. It seems to be much difficult, but it's more sustainable, and even the whole world is going decentralization. It's more towards the individual and the development of the individual. As we can notice also, B2B2C. B2B2C means, for example, when you sell to the school your service or your solution, and the school or the organization sell it to the customer or the students. This is our final chart. It's also very interesting. Why? Because you can see that from 0 to 6 years, startups in EdTech cover 66% of the startups in the MENA region. This means that this is still a green field. All these startups are just starting, with 30% just 0 to 3 during COVID. So it's very clear that COVID accelerated the rate of the existing startups, who are now 4 to 6 years, and also encourage other startups to start working in EdTech. And to add to this slide, as I was just mentioning in my presentation, that during this less than 11 months from Jan to today, we managed to reach out to 319 startups, and still others are coming. A lot are in the pipeline, ideation, MVP, and in the incubation phase. So education technology is booming. Investors are very interested now in EdTech. So encourage people who are interested in founding their own startups, and keep the good work. Thank you. هي announce ولا لا؟ Actually, I thought that the moderator is going to ask Patrick and Maria to come on stage, but allow me to do this. Patrick and Maria, our partners. Magid, my colleague and partner and brother, where are you? Patrick and Maria, thank you very much again for all your efforts across the whole world. Thank you for partnership with Nahdat Masr and Adventures for 2.5 years. And thank you for today, for the great summit, and for our celebration that is seen worldwide by everyone. Allow us, I and Magid, to thank you on behalf of Adventures and accept this small gift from us. اسمحوا لي اقول ده بالعربي بقى. ادفنتشرز ما كانتش هتبقى موجوده في الحياه الا بوجود قائد محترم فاهم عارف هو عايز يقود الشركه دي لفين. استاذ محمد ابراهيم ربنا يديله الصحه ويخليه لنا الوالد. وجود عيله فاهمه ومقتنعه بمستقبل كبير. مجرد ما قلت الفكره للوالد وافق وطلب مني استأذن عمي وبقيت كل اصحاب الشركه الكبار ان هم يشرفونا في اجتماع. عرضت عليهم الفكره وكلهم بالاجماع وافقوا على انشاء ادفنتشرز. فانا بشكركم جدا جدا. عشان ادفنتشرز تطلع للحياه كان لازم نتعلم. مهما كنا دارسين كان لازم ندرس يعني ايه incubation، يعني ايه acceleration، يعني ايه investment. انا وماجد زميل بقاله معانا 13 سنه 14 سنه زميل في نهضه مصر. اتعلمنا مع بعض تاني ودرسنا سوا وسافرنا امريكا ودرسنا سوا وبدأنا المشوار وبدأنا تاني. ساب نهضة مصر وبدأ معايا في ادفنتشرز. ما بدأش الجي ام بتاع ادفنتشرز، بدأ من تحت. كبر ماجد وبقى الجي ام بتاع ادفنتشرز. كل اللي انتوا شايفينه ده وكل النجاح ده بعد ربنا سبحانه وتعالى للشاب الجميل المحترم ده. أنا بشكر أخويا ماجد المدير المحترم المخلص والتيم بتاع ادفنتشرز. تحية كبيرة. تعالوا الناس لازم تشوفكم. تعالوا. فريق صغير، فريق جميل، فريق مثابر. اتفضلوا شرفونا. يلا يا شباب. ادفنتشرز كان مش ممكن هتنجح الا لو وراها ناس مؤمنه حقيقيه بالفكره، ناس مخلصه لنهضه مصر ومجموعه شركات نهضه مصر. ناس لما تقول لهم نهضه مصر هتعمل شركه جديده هي شركتنا كلنا، لما تقول لهم ان نهضه مصر هيبقى فيه ستارت ابس هيبقوا جزء مننا حتى لو احنا عندنا شير صغير في الشركات دي، بيقفوا معاهم لان هم عارفين ان احنا كيان واحد. حتى لو الستارت ابس دول الشير بتاعنا فيهم 10%. الناس دي هم اللي شالوا مجموعه شركات نهضه مصر، هم اللي عملوا نهضه مصر دلوقتي، وهم اللي واقفين في ظهر الستارت ابس. وكل ستارت اب موجود هنا عايز حاجه من اداره الكونتنت دكتور داليا فؤاد، من اداره الفاينانس استاذ يحيى. بعد اذنكم تقفوا اتفضلوا. من اداره البيزنس ديفلوبمنت، من اداره الماركتنج. يا شباب يا ريت كل واحد من شباب نهضه مصر الاعمده الاساسيه في نهضه مصر، the top managers in نهضه مصر group has been supporting the startups, each and every one in نهضه مصر group who has given his or her time to support our startups. Please stand up. Please. أنا بشكر حضراتكم لأنكم صدقتوا في الستارت ابس اللي هنشوف نجاحاتهم كمان شوية. هنشوف كل واحد من الستارت ابس عمل إيه، وكل واحد عنده قصة يشكر بيها الشباب الجميل ده ويشكر بيها القادة بتوع نهضة مصر اللي مشرفيننا طول الوقت. شكرا جزيلا. ممكن يعني I don't want to be I take it a lot of your time, but allow me to ask my colleagues in نهضة مصر to join the stage. اتفضلوا.
That's another thank you from me, from each and every one of you in Adventures and Nahdat Masr. I want to say one thing. I have a startup and I know very well how it is very difficult to continue the journey. If you don't have a backbone, if you don't have someone to believe in you, you won't be able to continue. So once again, thanks for each and every one of you. Even if he had a very small thing to do, that means a lot to any startup. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Ms. Maria. Thank you, Mr. Patrick, Delia, for the presentation, and data says it all. And now, a small introductory, let's not say introductory, actually we knew everything about Adventures, but let's see a short film about Adventures.
في كل عصر بتظهر شخصية تصنع فرق في حياة الناس، ومن 85 سنة اتأسس كيان عظيم حقق نقلة نوعية في مجالات التعليم والثقافة على إيد مؤسسه أحمد إبراهيم، وأطلق عليه اسم يعبر عنه نهضة مصر. مجموعة شركات كانت ولا زالت بتقدم كل الحلول اللي تقدر من خلالها تحقق رسالتها، من تعليم مستمر، ترفيه، ونشر ثقافة لكل مرحلة عمرية ولكل جيل على حسب احتياجاته. ومع كل جيل جديد بتظهر أفكار وحلول مختلفة.
مجال الإديوكيشن تكنولوجي مجال خصب جدا، واحنا ما بدأنا كان ما فيش حد تقريبا.
داليا محمد إبراهيم، مؤسس ورئيس مجلس إدارة نهضة مصر ريادة الأعمال أدفنتشرز. أنا كنت بعمل الماجستير بتاعي في الجامعة الأمريكية في Executive MBA، وأثناء ده اتعرفت على الإيكو سيستم بتاع الانتربرينورشيب أو عالم ريادة الأعمال، وطلب مني إن أنا أكون منتور. فأول مجموعة كنت منتور ليهم كانوا داخلين مسابقة، خدت تجربة المنتورشيب وسبحان الله يعني فازوا من أول مسابقة، فاداني أمل كبير قوي إن يعني ده أنا لازم أكمل في المشوار ده كجزء من مسؤولياتي المجتمعية يعني. وبعدين لما دخلت عالم الانتربرينورشيب اكتر او رياده الاعمال، اكتشفت ان العالم ده جميل جدا ويستحق ان احنا نفكر فيه بشكل مختلف. ممكن جدا نهضه مصر تساعد الشباب الجميل اللي موجود ده اللي عنده افكار رائعه، نختار الشباب الكويسين ونقف معاهم ونساعدهم من ناحيه ماليه ومن ناحيه فنيه ومن ناحيه تانية ان احنا نعرفهم على السوق اكتر. فلقيت ان ليه لا.
5 سنين من تأسيس ادفنتشرز قدرت فيهم تكون الأسرع نموا في الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا. قدمت فيهم كل صور الدعم اللي بتحتاجها الستارت ابس في مجال تكنولوجيا التعليم من خلال 3 برامج أساسية: Incubation, Acceleration, Direct Investment. كل برنامج فيهم مصمم علشان يقدم الدعم لرواد الأعمال بناء على احتياجاتهم في كل مرحلة من مراحل الشركة. مش بس الدعم المادي، لكن كمان مساعدتهم بشبكة علاقات قوية واستشارات من خبراء في التعليم من داخل نهضة مصر وخارجها، ده غير فرص انتشار وشراكات تساهم بشكل كبير في سرعة نمو شركاتهم. وصلنا لأكثر من 1300 ستارت اب اتخرج من برنامج الاحتضان والتسريع أكثر من 66 ستارت اب، هدفهم خدمة قطاعات التعليم المختلفة. استثمرنا في 13 ستارت اب مختلفين قادرين يغطوا قطاعات التعليم المصنفة من جانب HolonIQ، واللي منهم Digital Content, Online Learning, Management System, Workforce وSkills, Language Learning وSTEM. قدرنا نخلق أكتر من 1400 وظيفة بشكل مباشر من خلال الاستثمارات اللي قمنا بيها. قدمنا أكتر من 120 ورشة وجلسة تدريب، وحققنا أكتر من 700 ساعة تعليمية. وجنب البرامج ادفنتشرز بتقدم أشكال مختلفة من الدعم للانتربرينورشيب ايكو سيستم في مصر والوطن العربي، زي تواجدنا في أحداث وإيفنتس متنوعة علشان نكون أقرب لرواد الأعمال، نقدم لهم الدعم اللي محتاجينه، وننقل الصورة الحقيقية للتحديات اللي موجودة في سوق العمل وحلول تسهل عليهم الطريق. غير مبادرات وأحداث شهرية متنوعة، واللي بيكون هدفها توفير فرصة لرواد الأعمال إنهم يتواصلوا ويتقابلوا بشكل شهري، ومشاركة واحد من رواد الأعمال معاهم لخبرته في مجال معين، أو يفتح لهم طريق جديد يقدروا يستفيدوا من الفرص اللي موجودة فيه. قربنا أكتر من قصص ملهمة لرواد أعمال ناجحين، وحاولنا نظهر جوانب مختلفة من عالم ريادة الأعمال.
مش بنحس ان هم ستارت ابس خلاص نجحوا او ما نجحوش، مش ده الموضوع، بالعكس احنا بنحس ان احنا جزء منهم وهم جزء مننا. فكل التيم عندنا بيتعامل معاهم ان هم مش شركه احنا عملنا فيها استثمار، بنتعامل معاهم ان احنا بنكمل بعض، ان احنا بقيت المنظومه، ان احنا شركه واحده.
وكل استثمار قمنا بيه كنا بنشوف اثره في خلق فرص وفتح ابواب جديده وتمكين لالاف الشباب اللي قدروا يكتسبوا خبرات ومهارات تساعدهم انهم ياخدوا خطوات فعليه في مجالاتهم. 5 سنين من ادفنتشرز خلقنا فرص، مهدنا الطريق لأفكار علشان تطلع للنور، وقدمنا الدعم لكيانات ناجحة علشان تحقق أهداف أكبر. 5 سنين ولسه مكملين في تحقيق رؤية بتركز على تقديم الدعم الكامل لمجال تكنولوجيا التعليم في الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا. Adventures.
Thank you so much. And I guess, Ms. Delia, you forgot one more announcement. You have to come up on stage again, because I can't say the surprise. So if you don't mind, I'll ask Ms. Delia to come up on stage again. She has a very special announcement to tell you.
I actually was keeping the announcement at the end of the event, but it's fine. Maybe it's time for me to say the announcement again. I have to have my partner and colleague and brother Magid, please. What about you saying this announcement? Please.
Okay, we have a new investment announcement with a new startup. It is working in pre-K, and I need them to stand, please. They are here with us. Their name is Gilles. Okay, ممكن تقفوا؟ Okay.
This is our 14th investment, inshallah, in pre-K, one of the gaps in the market. أهلا وسهلا بك.
Congratulations. And to more and more successes. And it's only the start. Let's see after a couple of years how things would go. Okay. So today, as I mentioned, we aim to connect stakeholders in education, learners, parents, government, companies, and the industry to work together for a better educational future. So we'll start our panels today. Our first panel is entitled of Embedding Continuous Learning and Development into K-12 and Higher Education Lifestyle, moderated by Ms. Maryse Pease on the panel, the co-CEO of HolonIQ. Our panelists, and we would like to welcome them on stage, Con O'Donnell, I hope I pronounced them properly, Con O'Donnell, Head of Digital Products, Nahdat Masr, Ibrahim Is-Safadi, founder of Luminous, and Ms. Amani will be here substituting him today, Mr. Ayman Bazara, a co-founder of Sprints, Mike Dianamo, Director of National Education Initiatives at Coursera. I'm very sorry if I pronounced them wrong, but I hope I'm doing a good job, I hope.
Microphones. Hello, welcome everyone. This is more relaxed now. We can relax a little bit. I really hope to have time for some audience questions. We want to get some interaction going. But as I said earlier, my name is Maryse Pease. I'm really happy to be facilitating or moderating this panel. And we have some great speakers with such good experience and diverse experience. So getting some diverse perspectives is all important. I'm going to ask you to first, I know we've got our headshots behind us already, but let's just spend a minute to introduce yourself, your organisation, and your role. Let's start right at the very end there. Oh, no one's... I'm the only one with the microphone. Maybe we could get some more mics up here. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, I can start. I can start by myself. My name is Ayman Bazara. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sprints. At Sprints, we offer guaranteed hiring learning experience where we take fresh graduates from universities and we don't leave them unless they are employed in high-tech jobs, and they start paying after being employed over 3 years.
Fantastic. That's a hard gig to pull off, actually. So well done. Amani.
Hello everyone. Sorry, my picture is not up there. I am here instead of Ibrahim Is-Safadi, the founder and CEO of Luminous Life Plus. He would have loved to join us today, but unfortunately some circumstances didn't permit it. I'm Amani Hajir. I'm the development and fundraising advisor at Luminous Life Plus. And I mean, the best overview to give is basically the vision of Luminous Life Plus, which is to enable millions of young people and adults to build lifelong learning journeys that will lead to decent and sustainable employment. And the key word here is decent employment. We combine high quality practical skilling programs and mental and physical wellness programs with accessibility and affordability at scale. And we do that through our interconnected a physical and digital ecosystem which allows us to deliver online, on the ground, and ultimately on the metaverse. But most importantly is that we are not just diving into this scaling project blindly. We are building on 22 years of success in Jordan, delivering education for employment in practical and vocational skills. And we thought it was time for us to share this success with the world. So that is what we're doing, starting with the MENA region, which has huge potential. And we look forward to working with a lot of partners in the region that will help us make that a possibility. Thank you.
Thanks, Amani. Mike.
Thanks. My name is Mike Damiano. I work with Coursera. I've spent about 25 years working in education technology, including my own startups. So congratulations to everyone who's running a startup. Well done. Keep going. I know it's tough. Coursera is a global skills learning platform. We have just over 100 million learners globally, 80% of them outside the United States. In the MENA region, we've just got over 8 million, and Egypt actually accounts for 2 million of that 8 million, so there's some significant growth and opportunity here. So as well as doing the workforce development work that we are doing, we're working with governments and companies and universities, and yes, working university by university, to try and integrate the learning content from our partners into their curriculum. So it's a pleasure to be here. Great to see so many celebrations, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Mike. Con.
My name is Con O'Donnell. Let's try it again. My name is Con O'Donnell. I head up digital products at Nahdad Mars, sorry, and the biggest product we have is a K-12 product called Outwa. It's the largest market share in Egypt. And we're mainly serving the core curricula of the Egyptian curricula, but because we're digital, we don't have to stay in that domain, and we don't have to stay in just knowledge transfer, which is where we started. So we have a lot of ambitions for different styles of learning and different ways of delivering quality content, both curricular and non-curricular based. I'm not going to say too much because that's the strategy of the company.
Fantastic. One of the things that we learned earlier today was that changing demographics are going to have a very, very big impact on education, just in terms of the volume of learners and kids coming through, essentially. And to some extent, models of old won't be able to cope with that sort of volume of learners coming through at the speed and scale that's required. And so part of the title of this panel is embedding continuous learning into students' lifestyle, just, continuous learning, whether it's K-12 or higher ed. But I'm interested to start off with if traditional models are not going to be able to cope with what's coming, then what sort of new models are we already seeing, or that you'd like to see, that are or that could make a difference and actually deliver the outcomes and the access to education that is needed, particularly in this region? Yes, amen.
Okay, so actually I would say that the educational market is lagging behind. If you see, for example, Facebook, for instance, maybe they are not doing well these days, but in general,
yes.
In terms of deploying technology, they are advanced when it comes to any other edtech startup, for instance. Yes. For example, if you see social interactions, if you see machine learning algorithms working, if you see NLP in action. So I would say, actually I had a discussion related to Web 3.0 and how education, is going through Web 3. Actually, the discussion, we are actually still in Web 2 and we are still lagging behind as an industry. And this gives a huge opportunity for the ecosystem to work. Some examples, it's easy to deliver high quality education in small class but it's very difficult to do it at scale. Technology enables us to do this. For instance, let's reflect on higher education, the graduation project, the final graduation project in the university. you see that the university almost don't do anything. They don't pick the project. They don't support you actually, almost no support, and it's the ultimate experience for any student graduating from the university. You can see people who are missing classes, working day and night to deliver a project along a duration of 2 or 3 months of continuous work. This gives an insight. It's not about classroom-based learning or offline. Actually, students were left alone, work together, and deliver an objective. It's all about being time-boxed. It's about social learning, so there is a group of people working together, and they are delivering something that they are passionate about, and they are learning along the way. And it's almost simulating the business environment, where they are working together as a team to deliver something that they wrote the requirements at the beginning of the specs of the project that they are going to deliver. So again, the key insight here, in order to deliver at scale, is to engage the learners themselves through social learning, team-based learning, project-based, time-boxed. I don't believe in self-paced. For instance, I don't believe it's you will not finish the course. Yes. It has to be time-boxed. And deploying AI, for instance, you cannot see any platform right now. For instance, the instructors or the trainers themselves are auto-generated trainers at scale. This is not done. This will eliminate the scarcity of good tech people. And we have seen very good model here right now, and actually I need to be connected with this AI algorithm. But again, this is an opportunity, a huge opportunity to deploy, for example, AI to replace trainers and to translate from a language to a language in a seamless way. And you can see that the Arabic content, when it comes to tech, my domain technology, it's extremely rare. You cannot find good quality technology training.
Yes. I think one of the sort of universal truths really is learning by doing. That sort of authentic, maybe immersive, it may be technology, but certainly authentic learning usually engages people, and the sort of practice-based. And that feeds into, Amani, the Luminous Life process, because you're all about practice-based learning. So tell us about how you're changing the model for students in the region.
Yes, well, we're changing the model because Luminous Life Plus is really a solution towards the gap that we've been talking about since this event started, and the increasing gap between what employers are actually looking for, the skills they're looking for, and what actually young people are learning. Yes. So, companies are putting in all these, technology strategies and innovation, but they're not finding the talent to fill those gaps. So the only way, I think, regardless of what the model is that it needs to be agile and it needs to be fast-paced and keeping up with the changes that are happening. Because the reality is that we may be learning skills today that in 2 years will become obsolete and irrelevant. So you have to keep engaging with the employers and with the relevant stakeholders and making sure that your content is agile as it goes, and you keep on learning these new skills that are needed. So it's about, I think, agility and just constantly engaging and getting data from the involved stakeholders to make sure that we keep decreasing that gap.
Yeah. I think one of the really important points is not to build new legacy. We're trying to get away from legacy, but there's a danger that we might just build another one, right?
Yeah.
So thanks for those points. Yes.
There has been a very big trend recently looking at what industry needs and then reverse engineering it to what kind of sets of skills we should give young people throughout school and post-school and university age and postgraduates. But work and life is only one part of life. It's not the only thing that we should be thinking about when we're equipping young humans for their future, and not necessarily taking one set of voices, which is industry, and creating new initiatives based on what industry needs or what workforce needs. And when there's a whole other side of life that's very important for people to pursue, and to remember that these are humans that are developing and they're part of our society and have much greater value than the job that they do from 9 to 5 or remotely or whenever. I think when we're designing systems and ideas around this, we need to think of individual needs not just as a work person or as a future part of the workforce, but as a human in our society. And we went through the phase of everything is STEM, STEM. Now there's a new one. Just don't forget that these are humans that we have a responsibility to. And maybe the classroom structure is fractured, and there's not enough capacity. But it did play a role, and teachers do play a very important role in the societal aspect. And they inspire kids to learn something. They have a role in the motivation to continue to think. They have a role in the guidance, what to study, how to study, what's the journey, what's my destination. All of these things, technology has not given us what we need yet. So there is a lot of room for tech, but it needs to be on the human level, on the human and societal level.
Yeah, so the holistic, remembering that education is more than just learning stuff, really. It's about developing as a human and building in that holistic and wellness and student support. I think if the last 2 years have taught us anything, it's about sort of looking after the social, emotional and health of individuals. Mike, you're from a company that has taken, sort of new ways of thinking about structuring education models, and partnership is a core value, I guess, of your organisation. Tell us a little bit more about how new models can support that access and outcomes we've been talking about.
Yeah, I think the new models came from higher education.
Yes.
So Coursera was started by 2 university professors at Stanford, and that was the first collaboration. And so their on-campus classes were oversubscribed, and so they wanted to serve more learners, so they put it online, and that became oversubscribed. That quickly grew to we now have something like 250 universities and industry partners delivering content through the platform to all of the individual learners, but also to the governments, the universities, and the companies. So I think the actual model itself isn't necessarily groundbreaking. I think in terms of online learning, that had been done before. I think what the scale gives us is that the fact that we're working with so many learners and we're also working with so many companies and institutions. At the last count, something like 7,500 organizations are using Coursera. We are able to identify where those skills gaps are, and it is around jobs in this perspective rather than the whole human piece. Although one of our most popular courses through COVID was the Science of Happiness. 2.2 million learners. Check it out, it's fantastic. Yale University. So I suppose we do the whole human. But we're able to have a very quick cycle of, what is it that employers are looking for because their employees are using the platform, and we're tracking the skills that, let's say, an automotive engineer can also see what a university is producing in terms of their graduate, in terms of skills, and know that graduate perhaps wants a job in the automotive industry. We can identify where they are, and we work with partners, governments, universities, companies, to give them that information so that they can fill those gaps. We can go back to our industry partners to say, look, we need a new course in AI for brake management, perhaps. So it's that continual feedback loop that I think is the secret sauce, and being able to very quickly turn around new content. We can't wait. What we learn in university in year one is out of date by the time we graduate. So I think it's that feedback loop that technology gives us from a skills perspective.
I'm going to paraphrase and summarise. Is holistic learning, the whole human, is one thing. Being agile, not building new legacy, but being aware, being able to move fast, being authentic learning, real simulated or live learning, partnerships, the power of partnerships, and that's been a thematic today already. We can make an impact alone, but we can really change the world together. I mean, that sort of thinking. And then the use of data, the smart use of data, in terms of identifying where things, gaps or so on. So that's paraphrasing that rich conversation. This leads me, though, into the use of technology, especially in institutions, because through COVID we saw institutions, whether they be schools, school systems, universities, whole governments, really identifying huge gaps in their use of, or their ability, the infrastructure for technology in learning, whether it be as an adjunct to face-to-face or totally online. And I'm interested to see now, we're in 2022, at the end pretty much of 2022, what you're seeing in terms of changed approaches or embedded technologies, or really no change at all in the use of technology, the approaches to technology, the attitude to using technology from our traditional education providers and systems. It's okay to say nothing's changed if that's what you're seeing. I mean, you know, let's be sort of honest about what's happening. Yeah, come on.
Okay. So we've seen a regression to a certain extent, where people have gone away from the ideas that they were forced to do during the COVID period. And that's mainly because the experience was so bad for so many people.
Right.
And we didn't have the right products, we didn't have the right speeds, nobody knew this was coming, so everyone was caught back-footed, flat-footed, and we're all still in the process of trying to catch up, having learned a lot from that experience, but for most parents it was extremely painful. For students it was painful. And a lot of people didn't even have the access, because we have tiers in society, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 3 was not connected, so there's no digital solution for them. They don't have a digital option. So this is something else when we're building our future, to always have in mind that how are we going to access not the guys in the nice international schools who have their iPads and their big data connections, but everybody else in the majority of the country who has the cheapest phone possible, with the cheapest connectivity and the slowest lines and no storage. These are the people we have to design product, service for in this region. And we do have problems, structural.
Yes. So
societal.
The process surfaced those inequities and made them worse potentially.
There are lots of wonderful ideas. They have to also be. We have to think of the top and the bottom of society.
Yes. It has to be universal. That's difficult to pull off. Absolutely.
If we look at this from kind of the big numbers perspective, I took a look at the growth in Coursera learners in the MENA region over the past 4 years this morning. And we saw steady growth, and then COVID hit, and the entire globe's education system was shut. And at that time, Coursera made its platform freely available to every institution on the planet, which was a good move. And it was great to be in a position to support the education system there. And we saw a huge spike, understandably, across all regions, but also this region at that point. But that growth continued, not perhaps as fast. But this last quarter, we saw something like 550,000 new registered learners come to the platform. And that was only, the quarter that was larger was 2020 Q2, when everything shut down. So we're still seeing continued growth. And so the demand is there.
Yes.
When we look at the learners in Egypt, for instance, we've got 2.1 million learners in Egypt. Over 40% of them are university students. And I think more about in the context of higher education, because we don't really serve lower than high school. So we've got to ask the question, why are those university students going to a platform outside of their own country? What is it they're not getting from the education system locally? So in terms of what higher education is doing, I mean, globally, higher education is criticized for not meeting the demand of industry and meeting the demand of employers. And there is a huge inertia there. It is, as Mustalia says, you have to work university by university to help them change. And within those universities, you've got students, their parents, you've got the staff, the faculty, the administrators, the teachers. So, good luck to any innovative entrepreneur that wants to crack that. Yes. However, it is changing, and what we're seeing is we're seeing change in the private industry first, and then the government universities are being pushed to do this by that private industry. And so again, it comes down to collaboration. EdTech vendors working with the public sector, often with governments who can be quicker to change and change regulatory environments.
Yes.
But it's not as fast as the demand needs it to be.
Right, so the gap remains, but there's movement. start with you as well.
Yeah, sure. Actually, the biggest change due to COVID, I do believe, the government perspective to technology. I mean, the major improvement in deployment of technology. Just to give one example, for instance, we have in Egypt an initiative that wants to graduate 200,000 youth working in the technology field. Mainly, it's sponsored by the Ministry of Communication and IT. We are part as Prince of this program. It's completely online, and this massive initiative won't be deployed this quickly in this small time interval without the possibility and what technology can give. Just to give one example of how technology can make life easier. Part of being able to work in the task force or to learn is to have a kind of a feedback. We are talking about agile learning, so you want to deliver something, a project, and I want a feedback on what I have delivered. Currently, this, from a technology point of view, is doable, but if you see the current platforms that give a learner a kind of a continuous feedback, just an example, to write a code, as Prince, we teach coding, for instance. When you write a code and you have a complete feedback on the performance, functionality, the quality, how clean your code is, you don't find something like this. This program in Egypt enabled us to do this on high scale. And this is how technology can you can graduate 200,000 people who are employable.
Yes.
And just to give you a number, the number of programmers in Egypt is 90,000. So we're talking about doubling the number of programmers on a national scale in 18 months. So without technology, I'm 100% this won't have been, or it might be doable, but not at the same quality and not at the same speed or scale. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. The speed that you can move and the access, the scale, for sure. Amani.
So yeah, I'm going to actually go a bit off track, but something that my other panelists have said, especially Khan, about, the problem is that a lot of, platforms, they became available, but then they kind of forgot the people who didn't have access to internet, for example. And especially for us in Jordan, which has one of the highest number of refugees in the Middle East, it was an issue. We had, we were ready to go online when the pandemic hit because we had invested heavily in technology and we were doing the hybrid blended learning model for a while. But we noticed that attendance was very low. So we looked into it and we kind of, asked our students, our learners, why is this happening? They said simply, we don't have internet at home. They live in remote areas. I just wanted to say this example about what we did now about the importance of partnerships is that we actually secured partnerships with people in Jordan, with institutions in Jordan, and we were able to provide laptops and internet routers to all our students that didn't have it, and sometimes we'd have to give more than one because a student, his entire family would start using it and then they wouldn't be able to use it themselves. So, and actually attendance went up to 98% during the pandemic. So it really is about involving, working together, as cheesy as that sounds, but that is the only reason that we were actually able to deliver the education for employee, the practical skills education that we did during the pandemic. So there's always going to be challenges, but you kind of find those links and interconnections to kind of find a solution. Maybe more difficult, obviously, with larger populations, but it can start with smaller initiatives and then just kind of grow.
Yeah, we have seen through the pandemic governments all around the world and institutions and startups too, thinking more broadly about their role. It's not just about what happens in the classroom, and this comes back to what you were saying, Con, but the responsibility for the development. And if that requires internet access, then give them modems, and the German government allocated, I think, €10 a month to all K-12 students because they didn't have internet access. Same thing. So it broadened people's perspective around their responsibilities for access. What does access mean? It's not just a school on the, in the suburb. It's something else now. And so governments are definitely rethinking this as much as possible. We've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask one more question, and I just want to know from you, thinking around education in the MENA region and zoom out to 2030, what needs to happen? The one thing, just choose one thing, and there might be many, but choose the biggest thing, the one thing that you think really needs to happen in order for education in the region to have the ability for access to students and outcomes that we want to achieve by 2030? So access and outcomes being the objectives. What's the one thing that just absolutely has to happen in order to achieve those goals?
I can start.
Yes.
Okay, so I do believe in our region the basic skill. It could be an attribute actually, or personality. It's building curiosity, or actually keeping the student curious. The problem, we are born curious. Yes. The problem in our educational system that we kill curiosity.
Yes.
We don't start with the why. No subject starts with the why we are teaching this subject. What we want to learn at the end. So I do believe is to focus on keeping and maintaining the curious child is the best thing that could happen, and this will turn him to a lifelong learner, because passion is driven by curiosity.
Yes. Fantastic answer.
Yeah, I mean, difficult question, but if I had to choose one thing, I'd say focus on true outcome measurement and being able to actually verify the data that's necessary for that measurement. I think at the end of the day, we're all working towards a certain outcome, and in order to do that, we need to focus on how to collect that data and how to verify it to make sure that outcomes are truly measured. And we can, because if you're not measuring the outcomes, then you're not developing and you're not building towards something else. The only way for you to kind of keep developing and moving towards something that is more impactful is to measure that outcome properly and then build on that.
Yes, fantastic.
Basic literacy and internet access.
Yeah.
If we don't enable all of the population with basic literacies, and we don't give them all access and all the things that means to the internet, then everything we're talking about, technology, just doesn't matter.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
I think they're all right. All three are correct. Without the curious child, without the basic infrastructure, without the access across the society, and without data. And I think data is one of the things that we're going to see that will have the biggest kind of post this period impact. Because we're starting to be able to actually see on a large scale with big data using AI, we're starting to see patterns. And we will, with those patterns, we'll be able to break down what is the core of education into very smaller kind of things. I'll give you an example. Let's say the algorithm sees that my daughter is very, very, very artistic. Very musical, very artistic. Why am I teaching her algebra? Okay? Why is she stuck in a core set of subjects for several years of her life, and she only gets to start choosing things when she's 14 and 16 and 18, and things narrow down for her. But actually, she wants to start choosing things now. Do we have to give her all that other stuff?
Yes.
Or should we give her more music, more art, more other things?
So that links back to the curiosity, allowing that
and having the data
education.
to be able to see that this person, their personality is X or Y or Z, and enabling that, and making smaller, micro kind of content that's easily for them to move along with. I think all of these things interlink with each other.
Yes, they absolutely do. Thank you so much. Our time has run out, unfortunately, but please join me in thanking the panel for their thoughts today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maria. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Thank you, Ms. Amani. Thank you, Mr. Ayman. And thank you, Mr. Mike. Data, the importance of data. And Mr. Mike said a very important thing, actually all the panelists. But analyzing the data and knowing how to put it in the best place so our next generation or the generation we have now can reach accessible education. They can do what they want and not just give them education and that's it. So data is very important. And now, a panel with the global inflation. Is it right to invest in startups? Moderated by Mr. Patrick Brothers, co-CEO of HolonIQ. And I would like to welcome our panelist, Mr. Stavros Yukina, CEO of WISE. I hope I pronounced it right. Mr. Ayman Ismail, Founding Director of AUC Venture Lab. Mr. Rafah Saleh, Founding Partner at Qubit Venture. Mr. Maged Harbi, General Manager of Adventures. And Ms. Dana Dajini from El Ghorir Foundation. I need to pronounce it properly.
Yanuka.
I grab this. Perfect. Just while the panel is getting settled, you're going to do some homework in this session. You've got a piece of paper in front of you and a pen. I want you to grab it right now in front of you. I'm serious. And write down the following 4 items. Pre-K, or early childhood, that's 1 item. K-12, higher education, and workforce. And I'm taking names for the people who aren't doing this. We have an investment panel. What you're going to do at the end of this panel is I'm going to notionally give all of you $25 million to invest in the region. You have to generate a financial return and you have to create impact. You're going to invest that $25 million across those 4 categories you have in front of you. Early childhood, K-12, higher education and workforce. The GDP of MENA is about $5 trillion. There's about 200 of us here this evening, so with $25 million each, this evening the inaugural notional HolonIQ Adventures MENA Impact Fund will invest $5 billion across those 4 areas. And we're going to listen to the reflections of this panel, and that is what is going to inspire you investing that $25 million. So no pressure, and no pressure for the panel. That's a lot of pressure. Yeah, this is an investment committee, and what an investment committee it is. Let's start by quickly walking through. It'd just be great to have a very quick introduction for every one of yourself and your organisation. Stavros, can we start with you?
Yep, great to be here with you, Patrick, and the Adventures team. I'm Stavros Yanuka, CEO of WISE, the World Innovation Summit for Education. It's an initiative of Qatar Foundation that seeks to address some of the main global challenges in education through research, capacity building, and advocacy.
Hi everyone, great to be here. I'm Dana Dajani.
That's not working.
Can you hear me now? Yes. My name is Dana Dajani from the Abdullah Al Ghorir Foundation for Education based in Dubai. It's nice to be here with all of you. The Abdullah Al Ghorir Foundation for Education, we work with young people across the Arab world to build their skills through education as a vehicle towards improved livelihoods or elevated livelihoods for Arabs between the ages of 15 right up until 35. And I'm happy to explore any partnerships with everyone later on.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ayman Ismail. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship at the American Cairo, and also the founding director of AUC Venture Lab, our startup accelerator. For the past 10 years, we've been working with startups in different sectors in Egypt, and graduated more than 300 startups with fantastic impact, and we hope to get more of them coming in the pipeline.
Hello everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Rafah Saleh. I'm the founding partner of Qubit Ventures, a recently launched fund. We're Egypt focused. We're not an EdTech fund, so sorry about that everyone. Having said that, we already have an EdTech company, Sprints, amongst our portfolio companies, and we're very, very proud of being a partner to Sprints. Thank you.
My name is Maged Harbi from Adventures. We invest in startups in EdTech in seed stage. Our ticket size is up to 500K USD per start. Thank you.
All right. Oh, we've got another microphone. Wonderful. Pass this along. Thanks, Aman. Okay, we are going to move quickly. So this is, you are going to witness a live coffee shop conversation with this panel, debating the opportunities, the challenges, and finally I'm going to ask their panelists where they hope to see education by 2030 as we roll forward enough time that there's some change. So I'm going to ask you to respond quickly and briefly and passionately about the things that come to mind. So when you think about the challenges in this region in education, again, start with you, like what are the challenges that really strike you or come to mind or you're really focused on?
Well, I mean, Patrick, you did a great job in actually providing us with the data at the beginning of this conference. The challenge is simply you have a youth bulge coming in this region, some 1 billion children by 2050, representing 40% of the global total, coming into a region where, to put it mildly, education systems are underperforming, failing to deliver. So the challenge is, how are we going to leapfrog? How are we going to make sure that these kids get the opportunities they deserve? That's the key challenge.
Fascinating. Dana, how do you see the challenges?
I see, building on what was said, especially with the youth bulge, I want to focus a bit on the most vulnerable population that we're working with, who are refugees. The challenges of whether it's conflict and fleeing from conflict, early marriage. This is over 41% of young girls in refugees in Jordan and Lebanon are getting married as early as 14, if not less. Child labor, poverty, because of getting out of poverty that want to go to work. 14-hour days for an 8-year-old is happening. It's a reality. I think these are the main biggest challenges that I feel we need to crack.
Stavros mentioned the youth bulge. Egypt's population today is, let's say 2020, 100 million. 2050 is going to be 200 million people. So first thing, we have not been doing a good job in educating the current people who graduated. So we need to figure out ways to reskill them and bring them to a better workforce. Second, I don't think we can educate the next 100 million using the same traditional school-based model that we have. So we've got to figure out a different way to do that. And third, the educational institutions, whether it's the universities, schools, government regulators, the culture, all of that is really, really, really archaic. It's basically everybody's thinking in industrial models, the factory, it's kind of the schools are like the factories, and that's not where we are or should be. So you put these things together, I don't think you can continue the next 30 years in the same way that we've done in the previous century.
Wow. Rafa?
First of all, I'm a parent of a 9-year boy, and the first word that he said before saying mom was iPad. That was the first word out of his mouth. And seriously, they're in school, but they're still getting most of their informal education online. Not through MOOCs, not through formal challenges, just channels, just through informal, organic education. But in terms of challenge, I think it's all about access to quality education. And for a country that's going towards 200 million, the question is, how do you balance access and quality? Because as you increase access, maintaining quality becomes very difficult. So that balance between both is a big challenge.
Magid?
Okay, I think for my opinion, the main challenge, if we will see the student, is shifting from the traditional education to the EdTech, the education technology one. This is a challenge. Another one, the quality. And from the other side is the investors. Because the number of investors who are focusing on education is not that much. After COVID, this number increased, and hopefully will be increasing.
So that's plenty of challenges, and I really appreciate how open and honest we've been about the challenges as well as we've gone across. the panel. What about opportunities? And not just like the one big one, but what are some ideas or areas you see or models or just examples where you think, why I think we should do more of this, or why are we not doing more of this? What are those opportunities that you feel we should pursue or explore or deepen further, dare I say, invest? And let's keep following the pattern, Stavros, so you can take the lead.
Okay, I'm gonna throw something out there that we haven't talked about at all this evening, and I want to just start by maybe just putting a question to the audience, if I may. Does anyone know what the single best predictor of a child's academic performance is? Just anywhere, just
postcode.
Sorry,
postcode, zip code.
It's the education level of the parents. Okay, and we haven't talked about parents at all, and maybe, I don't know if it's in the taxonomy, Patrick, but maybe that's an idea. So my question is, what are we doing to support parents for them to then be able to support their kids in education? Maybe there's an opportunity that we haven't talked about that's outside the traditional.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of us parents felt that through COVID as well, right? Much more visibility of our child's kind of learning or lack of learning through that process, and it felt a lot closer. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful idea and opportunity. Dana?
Thank you. I like the idea of parents, and I think that we need to integrate parents into all of our kind of programming and design. What also is the pandemic, as hard as it was, also provided us with sort of the opportunity for online learning, and it also exposed the digital gap, but also like the upskilling, the work remotely. What we've seen from some of our programs that we're supporting in Jordan and Lebanon, as elsewhere, a young person is able to now work from a refugee camp in France remotely. It's not like pre-pandemic when we used to talk about online, or I used to work remotely. People would say working. So I think this is an opportunity to look into, because the world has become smaller, and we can really challenge that status quo. And help these young people gain access to the skills through upskilling, quality education, but also very much market-driven, I think.
Emma?
Since this is an investment panel, so let me just get into that part you mentioned, especially that you mentioned the different categories. If you're looking at the kind of easy and quick opportunity, it is in continuing education, executive education, things that are basically outside of the formal educational system. Why? Because you don't have the very formal structures of government standards, regulations, ranking, that kind of obsolete structure that is shaping that space. So if you go outside, this is why we have something like Coursera that's successful. Coursera cannot be successful in K-12. So they are successful in spaces where people have graduated and they're trying to work. And I think this is very important. So if you're looking for the easy, quick, interesting entry and a lot of change, that's where it happens. The big but slow and challenging opportunity is in the universities, followed by K-12. Universities are institutions that have not been transformed in a couple of 100 years, sometimes even longer than that. Parents want to put their kids there. They're willing to pay for it. They have a lot of value, prestige, brand, but at the same time, they're not accessible for everyone. So you've got to figure out what to do in that space, and I think this is kind of the big and next interesting thing. Now, you want to bring this back into how do you transform the educational experience itself. There are a couple of things that are interesting ideas you can think about. One is most of the educational system is based on the factory model. We all know the song, but it's literally people going through a manufacturing style experience. how can you actually customize that to everybody's abilities, different interest, aptitude, abilities, career position? We can do that with the availability of data right now. So this is the interesting part. Another thing is about the digital experience. The user experience is really bad, and this is what we've seen. It has to evolve a lot to be a good viable substitute. So a lot of people are talking about flipped classroom. So you can actually sit and watch a video of the top teacher, and then you go to the classroom to have the discussion, to have the social experience. Digital on its own is lacking the social experience, and the school is about the social plus the educational experience. So you've got to put the part that can be removed out of the school and put at low cost and scale on the digital side, and the part that has to remain in the school, which is mostly about socializing, discussing that experience, keep that in the school, and maybe people would go to the school 3 days a week or half the day to get that experience. So there are interesting innovations, but how can you bring this to actually a very rigid structure? I think that's the challenge. And I think this is also the big financial opportunity if someone wants to play in that space.
Rafa. Yeah, well, I agree with everything said. It's a part of it is bridging this gap between formal education and informal education, and what the informal can do to just complement what's happening in the formal, but not only complement, it needs to be looked at differently. It's no longer a substitute, because it's just another realm altogether that needs to be part of every child or every person's education. On the other hand, as well, from a technical perspective, going back to the social element as well, there's this risk of being too the extra screen time that comes with tech-based education, and therefore things that provide this integration between maybe gamification and then social actual interaction with real people is something that needs to be done, and I don't think the metaverse will be the solution to that. It's still, the metaverse can add a lot to that, but still the physical interaction needs to be there as well.
Can I just, some minor thing? I am really terrified that the biggest educational platform in the world becomes TikTok. I don't know what kind of kids we're going to produce out of that, and that is becoming very close to reality.
Yes, interesting, isn't it? I mean, watching how much my kids learn on YouTube or TikTok or any of those, it's a risk and an opportunity, right? Because they're learning a lot, but there's a downside for sure, and we can't really control or curate that experience the way we do formal education. Maged, how do you think about the opportunities?
I think there is a lot of opportunities in pre-K and teacher development as well. Also, the new technologies like AI and coding, programming, STEM, but we need to make sure that these areas covering the education's three main things, that's to be affordable and accessible and accreditable in order to ensure the sustainability and the business model is scaling.
All right, now back to homework. I hope everyone's got their homework in front of them. I'm giving my panelists a heads up that in this next and final round, I'm going to ask them to share, if you like, their vision or what they hope education will look like in 2030 here in the region, and just some very short attributes. Whilst they're thinking that through, I want you, next to those four items, pre-K, K-12, higher ed and workforce, to divide your $25 million across those four categories, and I'd like you to do that as we're walking through these reflections, so that by the time we're back to me, you have allocated or you have invested that $25 million however you like across those categories, remembering you have to generate a financial return for your investors, but you have to create a genuine impact out of that investment here in the region as well. So please grab your pens and paper. This is a homework task that is due in about 3 minutes. Make your investment across those four categories, because I'll be calling on you when we come back to me with those investments. All right, let's start back at Stavros again for our final lap. Can you share just a little bit? It doesn't have to be a grand vision, but what is it you hope to see about education in 2030 that's different or changed or it might look like at that point in time?
I mean, at the risk of repeating what was said on the earlier panel, I really think that getting the fundamentals right, the basic literacies, that's core, because without that foundation, it's very hard to see how you achieve anything else. So, you know, for the next billion kids that are coming, you know, coming up in the next 20, 30 years, that's what we need to solve for.
That's wonderful. Dana?
What I'd like to see is a more sort of collaborative, multidisciplinary kind of education. So it's not educators sitting and talking about education, because education is affecting everything. So I'd like to see more corporates, government, NGOs, civil society, parents, kids, all part of it, and not looking at education as the borders of education are the walls of the classroom. So it becomes more open, and people are really like understanding what does work ready mean, what's the real world, etc. And it becomes very organic, and it's in and out type of thing. So it's not just a textbook.
Wonderful. Aman?
If you look at education, the objective is being ready for the jobs, but also creating responsible citizens and also social mobility. A lot of the narrative now is focusing on the jobs part. I think this can be done in a better way through digital, customized, high-quality education. The social mobility and the citizens, this is the part that happens in the school through the socializing experience. And I would really hope that we can do a lot more in creating a better environment there that is not only 100% or 99% focusing on the jobs. Social mobility is extremely important. This is why parents are putting the time and effort. And we need to recognize that it's not something negative, it's actually a positive thing, and we need to actually use that as a way to push more investments and more energy into that space.
Thank you. Rafa?
I do not have the expertise to answer that specific question on education, and let me tackle it from a different perspective. As an agnostic fund in terms of verticals, we always look, and if education at the end of the day is a vertical from a product perspective, but on the underlying level there's a business model perspective. So if you look at a company, a typical MOOC company, that's one thing, but for example another company that provides financing for tuition, then the underlying concept here is more of a buy now, pay later model. If you're looking at a marketplace, that's a marketplace. And to me, what I want to see more of, and what I expect to see more of, is those underlying business models serving education just like they serve everything else. So fintech companies serving education through financing of tuition fees and other possible needs. Marketplaces serving education through, connecting entities to each other, regardless what the supply and the demand side are. Even, e-commerce space serving education through availing tools that would help students use more experiential learning tools, for example. So that's why I tend to look at it more from a business model perspective.
That's great. Thank you. Magid?
I think AI will be the core for education. You name it, robo-evolution, I think. AI will be like electricity, as Ms. Dalia mentioned before, and it will guide the teachers and will guide the students and will be more personalized to educate the people. I think.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for I feel like some really honest thoughts about the challenges, and I love that our opportunities, for the most part, we're getting the basics right and fixing the system versus taking education into the metaverse or something. And thank you so much for your thoughts about where we all hope education will be in 2030. Please join me in thanking the panel. As we break, I haven't forgotten your homework. Your task now, as we switch to the last panel before dinner, is to share your $25 million investment with the person next to you, and you have 2 minutes to explain to each other why you invested, where you invested. This is our 2-minute break while we set up for the next panel to share why you invested the way you did. Thank you so much.
Very interesting.
If you can do the introductions again,
okay,
because that's really good.
I would do that. Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Do you want to say thank you or something?
Just give them another minute and then you can start.
Okay, perfect. Talking about the challenges and the outcomes is extremely important. Actually, one important thing that I didn't know was the parents. If you want to look at the education of the kids and the level of education, we look at the parents. So we really need to put more attention into the parents' education. So, one more thank you to all the panelists who have joined us today. Mr. Patrick, shall we proceed? Okay, so, and now, panel entitled of Connecting the Education Ecosystem Landscape, moderated again by Mr. Patrick, Brothers, co-CEO of HolonIQ. And I would like to welcome our panelists on stage, Ms. Dalia Ibrahim, CEO of Nahdat Masr and founder of Ed Adventures, Mr. Ayman Abdulatif, Managing Director of Egypt Office Honoris, Mr. Mohammed Houssam Eddin, Vice President of Portfolio Development Nasij, Mr. Tariq Noureddin, Co-founder and CEO of Otto. Hello, Ahmed. I think, yes.
You just check these all work before we get started.
Hello.
Testing. This works. All right, we're going to make a start. This is our final panel before dinner. We do have a brief announcement before. And we're focusing on the ecosystem, at all of the stakeholders that are required to work together to take us towards the type of future that we just talked about. We'll start in the usual fashion, and I'll ask each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves and their organisation so we can get to know them a little better, and then we'll dig into some questions. So, Ayman, if you could start.
Certainly. Thanks, Patrick, for having me. My name is Ayman Abdulatif. I am Managing Director of Honoris United Universities. It's a network, it's the largest network of universities across Africa. We exist in 10 countries, 15 institutions, over 70,000 students. I myself have just, prior to that, I was with the American University in Cairo, Senior Vice President of the American University in Cairo. Prior to that, I come from the world of technology, where I spent the last 20 years in Microsoft and VMware, in all kinds of roles.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohammed Houssam Eddin. I am the Vice President of Nasij, a company out of Saudi Arabia that operates pan-Arab. And we are focusing on digital transformation for education and knowledge management. I've spent 25 years or more of my life working with educational institutes throughout the Middle East, and I am very pleased to be here, part of this summit indeed. Thank you.
Ms. Talia.
Okay.
That's all right.
I'm Tariq Nuruddin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of OTO Courses, which is one of the startups with Adventures. We actually raised almost $1 million total fund so far. We taught more than 40,000 learners up till now from more than 15 different countries. And I'm happy that I'm with you in this panel.
Wonderful. All right, let's jump straight into our session. We've had this wonderful graduation, actually. I'm sure we planned this, of conversations. And this conversation was about connecting the ecosystem. We wanted to bring together a group of people who represented from startups to investors, large organisations working in different parts of education, to bring together some perspectives on connecting the ecosystem to advance education. So our first round is really sharing reflections on the key stakeholders that make up and understanding from each of you why you think those stakeholders are so important as we reflect on bringing those stakeholders together. It'd be wonderful to bring together, as I know we've got many different geographic expertise and insights here as well, to bring parts of the region as well as Egypt into this conversation as well. So Ayman, if we could start with you, as you think, and perhaps you can share some onerous examples of stakeholders and working together in the ecosystem.
Yeah, for sure. So, going back to the question about who the stakeholders are, right? You have the usual suspects, right? So you have the students, you have the parents, you have the governments, you have international organizations, you have. But one of the most effective use of that, or coming together of those system or partners, of those stakeholders, is creating a network of partners. Because the scale of the problem or the scale of the challenge or the opportunity, as we heard, is just so great. There's not a single entity, there's not a single solution that's going to take care of getting across the final line. And so we in Honors, for example, because we're such a big network, we have a partnership with 700 partners. HolonIQ is one of them, Coursera is another, and so we're leveraging this extensive partnership to deliver on different parts of the puzzle. Again, because you're never going to find a single solution, and equally important, we're not going to spin our wheels trying to reinvent the wheel when there are specialist partners out there. Now, interestingly, technology is changing a little bit those relationships that existed previously. So one challenge that's becoming even more, and I think people alluded to it already, that's becoming more severe is the role of, for example, how do governments regulate the use of technology in the education sector, right? Or education structures in general. Another one is how do you push for change in a system that's super conservative, that across institutions that are archaic and very resistant to change. So again, you have to bring in the specialists to create that change and not take this on your own, because really the opportunity in the Middle East, Africa region, for all the reasons that we heard previously, is humongous. And if we don't, take that or meet that challenge, it's going to become a major problem.
Mohammed, I want to make your question even harder, because you've been talking with us all week about this. Are the stakeholders aligned as well as you see them? Are there tensions or conflicts? Do they share the same vision as we look at those stakeholder groups as well? And again, if you have any examples across the region, that would be wonderful.
I think alignment is a key word here. It's a buzzword as well. But if I was asked the question before the pandemic, I would maybe name 5-6 stakeholders. On top of them, of course, the students, and then faculty and parents and so on. But after the pandemic, we realized that education is extremely involved in every aspect of our life. And, you know, name it from education to health to finance to wherever you go, there's a stake for education, and the success of education is a key part there. Now, in terms of building the partnership, I think we are yet to see that, because there's some hesitation, and as Dr. Ayman said, at the higher education, I talk about higher education mainly, there's some hesitation of taking that step of opening up the higher education, making it very transparent to everyone, moving out from the closed boundaries of the, what you call it, the campus, Al-Haram Al-Jami'i, and opening this up to everyone so that they can see and know and build on what's going and what's happening. For example, the workforce planning, so that we can make sure that whatever we're planning as corporates for the future will find the right calibers from the graduates. That's a very simple issue that makes the partnership an essential component indeed.
Stalia, how do you think about, you in your presentations, we've seen so many stakeholders, like your partners extending to Disney and National Geographic, government partnerships as well. You've talked a lot about startup partnerships and all of those stakeholders, and no doubt worked very closely with government as well. What are your reflections on the stakeholders that need to come together to align to connect us as an ecosystem?
Allow me to categorize the stakeholders to 4 categories. The first one, of course, is the human beings, which is the students, the parents, the teachers, the managers, and the leaders of education. Another one is policymakers. And a third one are technology and enablers generally. And fourth one are all the organizations that support education with different equipment, software, hardware, even furniture and building, all this stuff. So we have a huge community of stakeholders supporting education. I like very much the point of alignment, and this is the key behind everything. A lot of countries in the region, they have a clear vision announced, and they want to have a strong plan in education for 2030. And a lot of initiatives in some countries are taking place on the ground, from Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and others. These are actually the top 4 countries having a lot of startups on the ground. But still, there isn't enough alignment. There are a lot of course, stakeholders from the business perspective, from NGOs, from the government. All these people are doing their best to improve education, but each one is doing it from his or her own perspective. Alignment is a bigger word. It has different meanings, maybe, for different people, but at the end, if we have real alignment and more awareness, and the governments announce their strategies, but it's not built inside the minds of all these stakeholders. We need to work more on communication, more in getting efforts together, because the aspect of having all these scattered efforts, if we have these people aligned, we will have tremendous change and tremendous effect on education, also on everything in our life, not only in education.
Yes, it certainly feels like if everybody was pushing in the same direction, we'd all go a lot further as part of that. Tarek, what are your reflections from a startup innovation perspective as you see the ecosystem, the stakeholders that you work with? How do you see it?
Well, that's a very interesting question regarding startups, because I can see a major change, especially with the focus on EdTech, because honestly, before COVID, we struggled finding partners and even VCs and so on, and like Adventures was our first believers, our first investors in 2018. They have been having the same vision with us even before COVID. We all believed that this is the new direction. COVID accelerated the process, and it made it like more factual, if we could say. And currently, we are glad that we can see more investments in the EdTech. Someone said here on stage, and I really like that there's 2 billion learners in the coming next period, and it's going to stretch the educational system so much. And they will need more solutions, and I believe that the edtech industry in the next period of time, it's peak. It's coming in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Most of the other industries, I believe, from my point of view, have already matured enough. Like, for example, things related to logistics, like Uber or something. Okay, it's like maybe some innovative things are going to come up, but it's almost at it passed its peak. But in the edtech field especially, it's coming during the next 2 or 3 years from my point of view.
I absolutely agree, and couldn't agree more. I mean, pre-COVID, we were investing a lot in how to get groceries faster, and now I think COVID has made all of the stakeholders realise how important education is and how underinvested education is. And so your reflections on, I think we're bringing new stakeholders into the conversation as well, who weren't even in the conversation before, who thought education was a funny, old...
Exactly, and they always say that it doesn't really make money, and which is like, no, it's a business, you can make money out of it, and at the same time, you benefit people, and that's one of the very good things about that sector.
Fascinating. I'd love to dig into some examples of collaboration and partnership, and hear from each of you, where you've seen stakeholders come together in interesting ways that are novel and unique and innovative. If you can share an example, it might be from your organisation, it might be something that you've seen in the market that you think is a very clever way of collaborating and aligning to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So one very interesting pilot that we're running currently is in Tunisia, and it's in collaboration with a partner, Lectorio, who they own a platform for medical, an online medical education platform, and what they enable is adaptive learning. And so adaptive learning personalizes at scale the delivery of this information. And so it's a lot more personalized, it's a lot more effective, it lands much more effectively. And so the quality of the education is so much higher, so much better. And it's at scale. You can do that personalization at scale. So one of the beauty of having a network of universities is you run those pilots, you test them, you gather the data, you're able to determine, is this something that will scale, that we should roll out elsewhere or not? And we have a very rigorous process for determining, is this a successful pilot, I mean, determining what the criteria for success is even. We have seven, I mean, we also encourage piloting, because again, our conclusion is there's not going to be a single solution that's going to be the silver bullet. Instead, we're going to have to find different solutions and roll them out across the network.
Very interesting. Mohammed?
Indeed, Gartner has a nice term called education ecosystem, and I think when they introduced this like 5-6 years ago, they were talking about moving the infrastructure from the institutions to the cloud and allowing the cloud to deliver the benefits of integration and partnerships. And I think what we need to do here is really just follow the track and move on to the cloud. I give an example which is very recent indeed. In Saudi Arabia, the Technical and Vocational Training Institute, the largest training institute that teaches diploma for secondary and high school graduates. So they take students after secondary schools and they take them after high schools, and they train every kind of learner on vocational aspects. Even they have in prisons some programs. So they have about 25 different programs to teach students. And they, in alignment with Vision 2030 in Saudi Arabia, they wanted to increase the admission this year of students from 25 to 50. And we told them that if you want to do that, the only way to do that is to integrate. And to integrate, you have to go to the cloud. And we brought together about 25 institutes from within Saudi Arabia, people of the national network, Abshir and afield for authentications, Ministry of Education, many partners of that institutes, and we built with them the integration in the cloud. So when they opened up the admission about 3 weeks ago, the second admission, we had zero time down, which is not really common in their situation in the previous years, but they were able to admit about 60,000 students, in fact, which is not only 50, the double number that they are asking for, but even more. And that was only possible because we brought the partnerships together and we put them all in a layer in the cloud so that they can really deliver on what they are supposed to do. So I think this is a very important lesson that, academic institutions have to go out to the cloud. Do not be afraid of it. Do not feel insecure. The cloud will provide you with a vehicle to be open and to get the access to the different stakeholders in a very secure, efficient, flexible, extensible way.
Interesting. Dalia, what do you hope to see, or partnership ideas and that you think will really advance us?
Well, I'm aspiring for a couple of things. He said Tarek or the...
You go, Tarek. You go for it.
No, if you said that.
No, please.
Okay. So...
he's an entrepreneur, so he has...
He's an entrepreneur.
We're passionate. We're always... I believe that one of the things we want to see as startups more is the policies that we were talking about, because working with education is also hard in regarding policies and things you need to follow, and if you need to do partnerships with official entities and all of those kind of things, it's getting way better, and that's good. But people are afraid to try new things in that sector. They're always like to keep in their comfort zone. We want to keep education as we knew it, like how the traditional things and ways and methods go. Whenever we want to say we want to try this new thing or that thing, people are kind of no, let's stick to what we are used to. So we need some risk taking, not like in funding and so, but in trying new things in education and being able to apply it so we can see its outcomes, because this is how we're going to evolve the ecosystem. Because what I've been noticing that the edtech startups now are starting to be very similar to each other. Ideas are getting more alike. We're all playing the same domain, so it needs a little innovative push.
How do you go about informing government and making them aware of edtech? If you think of it from a startup perspective, how do you go about informing important policy decisions so that that governments either here in Egypt or throughout the region are aware of and understand what edtech is and what it's trying to do? How do you go about that?
This is the role of Egyptian VCs, I believe, and they're doing it actively during the past time, because they're the connection between the small entrepreneurs and startups and companies and the government, because they have connections to the government. They sit with officials all the time, and by the way, a lot of the times they gather us with official meetings. I personally attended a couple meetings with ministers in Egypt, like Minister of Communication and a couple of other ministers, to hear from us the problems we're facing, what we can actually be done to help and support us, and so on. So we are going into that direction, actually, but I feel we just need to push it a little bit faster.
That's fascinating. It's really interesting. Dalia, what are your reflections?
Let me first support what Tarek has been saying. Actually, this is part of our role. We don't only support startups with financial and know-how. Know-how is a key in what we support startups with, but also connections. A lot of our startups, we were honored to introduce them to different ministries and to work together in several projects, and even to introduce them to have a mega project by themselves with several ministers. Coming back to the main point of the initiatives and how to make a real change in education, Adventure in itself is, I believe, it's an initiative in Egypt. When we started 5 years ago, really the ecosystem was almost empty. For this we had to start. We were obliged to start by incubation and acceleration. Now it's a different scene. If we talk about mega events like Techni Summit last week, we were the main sponsors of EdTech. There has never been EdTech track in any of these big summits. So we introduced the concept of EdTech and having a special track sponsored by Adventures, giving 2 days of panels and talks about different perspectives from education. So we consider this is part of our role, awareness, getting people to know, encouraging youth, going to universities and introducing the concept, sponsoring a lot of even incubators, not even through Adventures, but through other university incubators and so on. But actually, what I am keen of, my personal dream to see in the region and in Egypt and maybe across the world, is a different perspective, a different vision about education. Egypt has done a huge change and very, very big initiatives these days. In the last 5 years, Egypt has leaped in education. We have a story to tell in Egypt these days, with curriculum development, with digitalization, with supporting startups, with digital content available for free everywhere, with a lot of platforms, not only one, integrating with startups, with big companies, international, local companies, to support and help the students to improve, and mainly the concept of not teaching students how to memorize, but how to work on the development of the students' skills. So besides this vision of working on the skills of the student and improving their way of studying and letting them enjoy learning, not just go to school to study and it's a homework that I have to do. On the contrary, enjoying the concept of learning, not studying just for the exam. This was a great thing that is taking place on the ground. Taking also consideration about the vocational education. This is very important in the whole region. And as you have been mentioning, Saudi Arabia and other countries and Egypt are concentrating on the vocational education because it's essential for our economy, for our people, and for the whole community. We need to change the mindset of people about vocational education. I believe this is happening. The Ministry of Education in Egypt asked the private sector to support the ministry by taking over some of the existing schools and applying new ways in different industries and being sponsors for these schools, vocational schools. We have now 42 schools that are sponsored by big industries and big family and businesses and even government there. For example, one of them is We is the telecom operator. They have 6 schools in vocational education. Now, with different concept, the students graduate from grade 9. The students who have higher grade, they go to these vocational schools. And we at the Nahdat Masr Group are honored to donate one of these schools, the first green school in Egypt that teaches hospitality and tourism, is going to start operating next year. We just made this donation 2 months ago. We are committed, at least for the coming 6 years, to provide different education programs and to work on the concept of sustainability and green school. So the government is moving. This is not only in Egypt. A lot of initiatives are happening in Jordan, others in Saudi Arabia, as I mentioned, and UAE, and so on. But still, we need to get out of the traditional K-12 university system. No more. This was, if you consider the old education 1.0, which was having someone who have a good craft or professional, a certain thing, that the learner sits beside him and just start to know and learn this craft quite well. And then we move to the industrial era, where we had the schools number of students sitting in the same class, taking the same material. They have to go through the path of K to 12 and then university. No more. We have to think out of this box. It is now, it proved that this is not what we need these days. We need personalized learning. We need to understand more our students. We need to understand their capabilities, the market need. We should not go through this path of studying 14 plus 4, 14 plus 4, so we are talking about 18 years of your life studying, and then you come out, you don't find a job. You can early enough change and twist and start even being a productive person in your country, in your society, or even across the whole world from your place. But we have to change this. We have to break this taboo.
Very interesting. As Dali has taken us into the future, and I'm going to start with you, Tarek, and then we'll close our final question. As you look into the future, how do you hope to see stakeholders working differently together in the future? And that could be governments with startups, universities with employers, schools with vocational providers, but how do you hope to see those stakeholders working differently together, parents with schools? What combinations are you really hoping to see change in the future?
Well, honestly, we've been talking a lot about governments and VCs and so I would like to focus on a new or different kind of stakeholders, which is parents. I believe, especially with the projects related to the K-12, the parents' involvement in making such projects succeed is very important, because we are seeing resistance, honestly, when trying some of the new methods of education from parents, because the new generation, Z, now, is different than the previous generation. This new generation, if you're at 5th grade or 6th grade or 7th grade, you could start to actually make decisions for yourself. You can tell your parent, I want to actually have an online course. I want to download this application because it has. So we need to see support from parents, and this will be through awareness, and that we aware that to parents in order to actually give some room for their kids to try those new things in education. This is the first thing I would love to focus on, because it will create a big difference, because some parents are still focusing on the old ways, and they trust the old ways because those are the ways that they learned. But they have to know that there are newer ways that are better, that could support. And number two, definitely corporates. We believe corporates could support us very much, especially with the part of the higher education and the people who are graduates. As corporates, they have a major role in actually implementing a lot of those programs that we use. We actually work, like OTO, work with more than 40 different companies, national and international, and they started to trust more the online courses and online education and innovative education, because before they used to come say, you have to have an instructor physically inside the company giving all the employees the training inside. So this is changing a lot, but still maybe some of the traditional companies are not 100% fully, it's in the process. So those two stakeholders, from a business point of view to a startup, if they got some changed here and there, we believe we could accelerate at least 3-4x than what we're doing.
Dalia, what are some changes you'd like to see, you hope to see, or you expect to see in how stakeholders are working together?
Actually, I believe that the NGOs and the social responsibility of the individual, of the organization, and of the corporate should help very much in pushing the direction of improving education. It's not only the startups, not only the venture capitals, it's not only the publishers or educators, not only the government, but we need the whole society. We need to feel the commitment of each one of us. The social responsibility can change the whole economy, can change the whole world. And we can see this in the developed economies and developed countries. Each individual should feel his or her responsibility towards the community, and the corporate responsibility should focus more. A lot of them actually are focusing on education and healthcare, but they should focus more and get more aligned with the strategy of the government.
Interesting.
I think we need to focus more on student experience, make sure that we meet the expectations of our users. I think our kids, to what Tariq was mentioning, are ahead of us. They are not listening to their parents when it comes to how they should study and learn. And I tell from experience. So I think our kids and our students are much more ahead of us, and we need to adopt and catch at speed to what they expect. And one thing that we can do on this is to improve the user experience when it comes to integrate the services around how they interact with the learning material, with their teachers, with their exams, and so on, and how they come to the class, how they report and submit projects, and so on. So one thing is user experience. Second thing that I think will be very critical to, not at the level of the institution, but at the level of the community, is national networks. I think there is a move, and it is supported by the advancement of technology, to see more and more national networks and national collaborations amongst the educational institutions. And that is really very rewarding to the country and very rewarding to the individual institutes. For example, I want to allow my son, for example, to study today, this semester in Riyadh, in the University of Riyadh, and easily and smoothly can study next semester in Jeddah because I'm moving to Jeddah for any reason or whatever is that. So that would only be possible if there's a network of integration between the different institutes within the country itself. The third thing, which is very critical as well, and maybe related to this, is the exposing the data of the institution. You know, the academic institution has a huge data, huge critical data in terms of how the students is learning, how they are performing, and so on. One example that I mentioned today to Amani, and I know that a number of universities are trying to do today, is to expose the e-portfolio achievement of the students so that the workforce can have access to evidence about how this student's CV is actually telling the truth, by enabling the students to create links in their CVs. And these links takes the employer to the performance of the students on the website of the university, so that they can verify that the claim of the student is true, and hence having more employment chances for them. So focusing on student experience, seeing more of national networks, as well as exposing the data of the institute so that we can have much more value out of it.
That's great. I love how you've talked about not just the different stakeholder groups, but one of those groups working together better. Credit recognition and opening up those pathways is huge value that needs to be unlocked there.
May I add just a small part to what you have been saying, which is really very important? The artificial intelligence. There is a huge gap still in our region in the artificial intelligence being embedded in our systems. Artificial intelligence is very important to understand the behavior of our students and their needs and their capabilities. It's going to support the student, the parent, and the teacher in the educational path of each of them. So actually from here, I'd like to ask whomever entrepreneur is interested in EdTech to try to include artificial intelligence in your programs. It's very important, it's essential, it's considered, as just Maggot said, it's the electricity. We need it in all our applications to understand more our consumers.
That's great advice. All right, closing out, Aman, Honoris is like born multi-stakeholder, born network. What changes do you want to see?
So all of the above, right? Again, it's going to take, you know the statement, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So it takes really a continent to make that shift. So all of the above, really. The one stakeholder that we haven't spoken a lot about is, and that's one thing that we are doing in Honors, is the educators and the teachers. And they can be an incredible source of resistance or a flywheel for change and an agent of change. And equally important,
workforce and skills, there's a There's a lot of demand and growth in that area, and management systems over on the side where Patrick is. So management systems is a group of organisations that are typically supporting institutions. And of course, over the last couple of years, we've seen a huge pull in terms of demand from schools and governments and universities for the underlying infrastructure to support digital learning or access or communication, any of those things. And all around the world now, we have seen quite a massive growth in EdTech operating in the management systems area because of this last couple of years. And even in our own global market sizing, we do expect a long-term commitment to digital infrastructure for learning inside institutions and from governments, and actually that's what we're seeing.
I very briefly want to mention that it's incredibly difficult to get to 50.
Yes.
You may have seen in Ms. Dalia's presentation, we've identified over 1,500 EdTech startups in the region to find. We follow the World Bank classification, so Middle East and North Africa, and it is very, very, very difficult because the quality of the startups in the region is getting better and better and better every year. We look at 5 key criteria: the market, the product, the momentum that the team has generated, the team itself, and very importantly, its diversity. And we also look at capital, and that's not just raising venture capital, that's the team's ability to secure the resources that it needs to pursue its mission as well.
The other thing Ms. Dalia talked about and showed a chart on the mix of organisations in this market map. And firstly, on our website, probably tomorrow, a whole research note will be published, so you can go on and have a look at the deep dive into it. But what we do see is quite a large proportion of direct-to-consumer solutions. And Ms. Dalia, you asked in that presentation whether that was the same in all parts of the world, and it's definitely not. In emerging markets, we typically see a higher proportion of direct-to-consumer edtech, and in more developed markets, we see a higher proportion of business-to-business edtech. And so there's a whole range of sort of backgrounds to that. One of the trends over the last 2 years is consumer models are finding traction from business, from institutions. And so we see more dual models now for edtech where they are mainly direct-to-consumer, but now getting demand from schools and universities. And so this is a great sign, I think. The part that is useful to think about in terms of this map is the age of these startups. It's a relatively young ecosystem, and there's a lot of bubbling new teams growing and starting every day. This is very healthy. It's quite a healthy ecosystem. In other parts, more mature ecosystems, we see a higher proportion in the 7 to 9 years old, established and big, sort of more consolidated market. Here we see younger and lots of activity at the early stages. Very, very healthy ecosystem. So we want to see more of that, of course.
And some final remarks. That badge you see in the bottom right there is a treasured credential from all of these teams who are lucky enough to be recognised as part of the 2022 Middle East and North Africa EdTech 50. That is highly valued by investors who are looking to understand the quality of those companies, but I think more importantly, highly valued by employees as teams seek to show talent that they're looking to bring onto their team, that we are one of the best here in the region. You should join us. Not to mention customers and other stakeholders who find that. Maria and I were sweating a lot as Ms. Dalia and Maggot announced their investment, but it makes a whole lot of sense. So on behalf of the whole team at HolonIQ around the world, congratulations to these 50 teams. Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Thank you, Ms. Maria, and congratulations to the 50 startups who were recognized by HolonIQ. Adventure's impact has been major through the diverse startups that they have invested in. They currently have 13 startups in their portfolio, serving the Egyptian, MENA and global markets. Please allow me to present to you a 1-minute video for each startup and Adventures portfolio, who cover 5 different categories: content, workforce, STEAM, management systems, language learning. But before we see the video, I'd like to thank you so much for attending with us today, the 5th anniversary for Adventures and HolonIQ Global Impact Summit. It was such an honor to be with you. We'll watch the video, then dinner will be served. Thank you.
أنا شو علاء الدين co-founder and managing director of Cairo 180. Cairo 180 بقى لها أكتر من 5 سنين، بقينا one of the top edtech and recruitment platforms في مصر. في البداية سألنا من هنا قررنا إن احنا نكمبليت السايكل بالتأهيل والتوظيف، فيقدر يتكلم إن هو ياخد ريكوردد كورسز سواء من بروفيشنال اكسبرتس أو كورسز كورسز، شركات بتصور معانا كورسز عشان يطوروا مهارات الكاليبرز ويعرفوهم بالهاير نيدز. وبرضه بعديها بيقدر ان هو ياخد بادجز ويقدم على فيكنسيز وانترنشيبس وفريلانسنج جوبز على ال ويب سايت. قدرنا يبقى عندنا كلاينتس وشراكات مع اكثر من 500 شركه، من ضمنهم IBM ومايكروسوفت وسي اي بي، ومع وزارات سواء في مصر او الامارات وستارت ابس وبلاي سنترز في كل الجامعات. دلوقتي بقى عندنا اكثر من 250,000 يوزر و150 كورس على الكارير 180 ويب سايت. او الريفنيو ستريم بتيجي من ريكوردد كورس سبسكريبشن، من ريكوردد بادجز، من ريكروتمنت باكجز. وأز ماركتنج تول وي اون ذا بيجست كارير ديفلوبمنت ايفنت ان ايجيبت اسمه ايجيبت كارير سامت، والريفنيوز بتاعته من السبونسرشيب ومن التيكتس. دلوقتي وي ار سيكينج انفستمنت تو بي ذا فيرست ديستنيشن فور اول كايند اوف كاليبرز ان هنا ريجن تو جيت كواليفايد اند هاير. لو اي حد بيدور على شغل او عايز يبقى كواليفايد لمصر في الجوب ماركت، لازم يلاقي اكتر من 150 كورس و1000 ونص فيكنسي على كارير 180 ويب سايت.
Hello, this is Mustafa from Egypt. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of eYouth. eYouth is an edtech company providing online interactive learning programs for youth from 18 to 35 years old. We provide these programs in Arabic language, besides English and French, to reduce the hiring skills in the labor market, and then matchmaking them with the available jobs in the market. We have almost 1 million users on the platform, and we helped more than 170,000 people to get hired whenever they're first hiring or upgrading their current jobs. We're providing our products using our website and mobile application, and we have more than 300 different careers providing courses and interactive learning programs in these careers. Visit eyouslearning.com, you will find more about the company.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Badr and I'm co-founder and COO at OTO Courses. Now, in the Arab world, there was a problem that most Arabs face, which is learning a new language, most specifically the English language. Now, most people in the Arab world are trying to get better education by getting the English language. They're trying to get better careers that are more rewarding through using the English language. And this is why OTO came in, and we stepped in with general and customized online English language courses, which are fully customized for the one-to-one experience that our students need. Now, we did also customize courses for corporates and for individuals, and we do deal with learners from all age groups. We did also most recently launch OTO Schools, which focuses on the K-12 subjects that will take students from grade 1 all the way to grade 12. Please visit us on otocourses.com to know more.
I'm Ayman, the CEO and co-founder of Sprints. Sprints is an edtech startup that provides tech-focused learning journeys for employment. At Sprints, we promise a guaranteed hiring journey. Our programs are co-designed with employers to integrate the latest market needs. Learners meet role-playing customers to gather software requirements and deliver software products on a weekly basis. Learners only pay when they get hired, so payment is no more an issue.
Employers also pay to hire our grads and upskill their employees. Our programs cover the top tech demanded fields, whether it's AI, data science, or IoT. In the past 6 months, we have delivered 700,000 learning hours for 8,000 learners while operating at 75% gross margin. During my journey, I realized that Middle East and Africa has a huge potential when it comes to youth and talents. And if this power is unleashed, we'll be the strongest tech hub in the whole world. And this is our mission at Sprints. To know more about us, please visit sprints.ai.
My name is Ibrahim Abdullah, co-founder and CEO of iSchool. In the MENA region, we have millions of graduates who do not have the necessary skills or abilities for work, and this only increases daily. So, it is a necessity, not a privilege, to help kids and young adults acquire tech skills and create real impact. That's why we created iSchool. iSchool is an online coding platform that helps students build careers in emerging technology fields. iSchool Life Journey is gamified and customized. iSchool curriculum is localized and developed using global K-12 standards and international accreditations. We have trained more than 10,000 students. We have generated more than $1 million in revenue. We have students across 10 countries. We are planning to scale in Saudi and the United Arab Emirates. Join us in our journey to reshape the future of education. Visit ischooltech.com.
مساء الخير. أنا إحسان حمدي، شريك مؤسس ومدير العمليات في شركة سوبر فني. شركة سوبر فني بدأت في اسكندرية بهدف رفع كفاءة طلاب التعليم الفني والتدريب المهني في مصر. واي حد محتاج يتعلم مهنه جديده يطور بيها من نفسه وتبقى مصدر دخل جديد ليه من خلال تدريبات مهنيه متخصصه في اكتر من 60 مهنه مختلفه، بالاضافه لتدريبات رياده الاعمال والمهارات الحياتيه والجاهزيه لسوق العمل والصحه والسلامه المهنيه. ده غير اقامه الاحداث والفعاليات لتغيير الصوره الذهنيه للمجتمع عن التعليم الفني. وفي خلال رحله سوبر فني من 2019 لحد النهارده قدرنا نعمل انجازات مختلفه، منها ان احنا بنملك 7 معامل متنقله واشتغلنا مع 115 مصنع، اقمنا 6 معارض توظيف ونفذنا 460 تدريب. كل ده تم في 17 محافظه في مصر بالتعاون مع 40 شريك محلي و25 جهه دوليه. دربنا ووظفنا اكتر من 35,000 شخص ولسه هندرب ونوظف ناس اكتر. تقدروا تعرفوا عن سوبر فني اكتر من خلال الويب سايت superfanny.com.
أنا عمر البربري CEO and founder OBM Education. OBM Education أيمن هي تساعد طلاب المرحلة ما قبل الجامعية في تحديد اختياراتهم من الكليات ومن الفرص، وكمان تعرفهم بمتطلبات سوق العمل الجديدة. في خلال آخر سنتين OBM قدرت إن هي تفيد أكتر من 250,000 طالب من خلال البروجرامز والإيفنتس اللي كانت بتقدمها. والسنة دي قدرنا إن احنا نطلق طالب أب لطلاب المرحلة ما قبل الجامعية من تانية إعدادي لحد تالتة ثانوي، يقدروا يكتشفوا المهارات الممكنه، يقدروا ان هم يشوفوا الكليات والجامعات المناسبه للانترست بتاعتهم، يقدروا يعملوا حاجات كتيره قوي، اكتر من 10 فيتشرز موجودين جوه الموبايل اب يقدر اي طالب ان هو يستمتع بيها، زي طالب ووتش، طالب بودكاست، وطالب ماركت. وكمان الطالب يقدر لاول مره في مصر ان هو يعمل اسسمنت، يقدر ان هو يقول له ايه الاتجاهات المستقبليه بالنسبه له. مع اطلاق طالب اب في اول يوم قدرنا ان احنا نوصل لاكتر من 2000 داونلود من الطلاب من الفئه المستهدفه، وكمان لقينا بوزيتيف فيدباك من اولياء الامور والطلاب على الفيتشرز اللي موجوده حاليا داخل الموبايل اب. ده بيدل على ان في نيد واضحه بتقدمها OBM وبيقدمها طالب اب للطلاب. تقدروا تعرفوا اكتر عن البرودكتس اللي OBM بتقدمها من www.opmeg.com، وكمان تقدروا نداونلود طالب اب من الاب ستور والبلاي ستور.
اهلا وسهلا بيكم. انا امجد مصطفى، شريك مؤسس شركه فريزيانا. شركه فريزيانا هي بمثابه ايكو سيستم متكامل لقطاع الصناعات الابداعيه والتعليم الفني في مصر والوطن العربي. قطاع الصناعات الابداعيه والتعليم الفني في مصر بيواجه عده مشكلات. المشكله الاولى هي الفجوه ما بين احتياجات السوق والعميل وما بين نوعيه وجوده المنتجات المنتجه. والمشكله الثانيه متمثله في ضعف برامج التدريب والتاهيل المتوفره للحرفيين والصناعيه واللي تطور مهاراتهم بما يتناسب مع احتياجات السوق. المشكله الثالثه انه في حاله توفر المواد التدريبيه بتكون في نطاقات محدده جدا، وده بيحرم كتير جدا من الصناعيه والحرفيين من اصحاب الاقاليم من فرص التعلم. اما المشكله الرابعه فهي صعوبه الحصول على المواد الخام من مورد واحد، وده بيأثر على ارتفاع تكلفه المنتج النهائيه نظرا للحصول على الماده الخام من اكثر من مورد. احنا في فريزيانا قدمنا عده حلول من خلال عدد من المنتجات كانت بمثابه ايكو سيستم متكامل للقطاع ده، وانا هنا تحديدا بتكلم عن كرافتي، واللي بنوفر من خلال عشرات المواد التعليميه في المجالات الحرفيه والفنيه، وكمان بنوفر التول كيت اللي بنجمعها كلها في مكان واحد تقدر تحصل عليها لغايه باب البيت او الورشه بتاعتك، وكمان بنضمن للمتعلم فرصه الحصول على وظيفه او تسويق منتجاته من خلال منتجاتنا الثانيه والوصول للسوق بشكل مباشر. فانت عندنا هتتعلم وتطور من مهاراتك وتبيع وتوصل للسوق والتمويل. احنا شغالين من 2017، خدمنا اكثر من 33,000 عميل وعملنا اكثر من 25 شراكه دوليه وحكوميه خلاف مئات الشراكات مع شركائنا المحليين. هنكون سعداء بكل فرصه تعاون ممكن تعزز من دعمنا لمجتمع الحرفيين والفنيين والصنايعيه في مصر واللي عددهم بالملايين، وكل ده هيساعد في تطوير الصناعه المصريه وتعزيز فرص التصدير. اعرفوا اكثر عننا من خلال الويب سايت.
اهلا، انا محمد اسامه CEO كوفاوندر في اخضر. كلنا عندنا مشكله اننا ما عندناش الوقت الكافي اننا نقرا كل اللي احنا عايزين نقراه. اخضر حلت المشكله دي بانها بتوفر ليك مكتبه فيها الاف ملخصات الكتب. من خلال تطبيق اخضر تقدر تخصص التجربه كلها زي ما انت عايز لاكتر من 2000 ملخص كتاب، تقدر تسمع اونلاين، تقدر تسمع اوفلاين. اخضر خلال سنتين وصلت لاكتر من 1,000,000 شخص في 173 دوله مختلفه، وقابل رشحتها كواحد من افضل التطبيقات المصنوعه في مصر. حمل تطبيق اخضر من على جوجل بلاي واب ستور وخصص تجربتك المعرفيه بنفسك دلوقتي.
أنا مريم عمر، مدير شريك لشركة جرينش. سنة 2050 هيكون في عدد بلاستيك أكتر بكتير من عدد الأسماك اللي موجود في البحار والمحيطات، و40 مليون شخص في قطاع الزراعة بس في مصر هيكونوا من المتأثرين بالتغيرات المناخية. مصر والدول العربية والأفريقية بشكل عام من أكتر الأماكن اللي هتكون بتتعرض لتبعيات قوية للتغيرات المناخية، وده بسبب قلة الوعي والتعليم التفاعلي البيئي خاصة باللغة العربية وقلة الأبحاث والدراسات المتركزة على المنطقة، وده كان السبب وراء إنشاء شركة جرينش. جرينش هي شركة مجتمعية هدفها إنشاء محتوى تعليمي بيئي باللغة العربية متركز أكتر على الدول العربية ومصر، وعمل دراسات وأبحاث مختلفة ومساعدة الأفراد في تنفيذ مشروعات مجتمعية تحل مشاكلهم البيئية. في خلال ال5 سنين الأخيرة جرينش قدرت تنفذ 40 مشروع في 12 محافظة حوالين مصر ودول عربية زي لبنان والأردن، وقدرنا نكون موجودين في 26 جامعة ومدرسة بنخدم 2000 طالب ينفذوا مشروعاتهم لحل المشاكل البيئية في مجتمعاتهم. السنة دي احنا مبسوطين ان احنا موجودين في كوب 27 كممثلين عن المجتمع المدني المصري بأنشطة مختلفة. تقدروا تعرفوا عن أنشطة جرينش المختلفة من خلال الويب سايت.
اهلا بيكم، معاكم تامر بدوي مؤسس شركه كولن سكول مانجمنت سيستم. بنستهدف بيه الميدل والليمتد انكم سيجمنت. تاسسنا في 2018 ومع النجاح اللي احنا عملناه الحمد لله بتواجدنا في 16 محافظه باكثر من 69 مدينه فيهم 125 مدرسه و140 الف طالب. قدرنا نكون داتا ماين خلانا نلمس المشاكل الحقيقيه اللي موجوده في سوق التعليم الالكتروني، وده اللي بيخلينا بنبيفوت دلوقتي لمشاكل تانية ليها علاقة بالاي كوميرس او ليها علاقة بالكولابريشن مع الثيرد بارتيز اللي بيشتغلوا في التعليم الالكتروني. لو عايز تعرف عننا اكتر تواصل معنا على كولن سكولز على الفيسبوك او colin.com على الويب سايت. شكرا لكم.
في كل عصر بتظهر شخصية تصنع فرق في حياة الناس، ومن 85 سنة اتأسس كيان عظيم حقق نقلة نوعية في مجالات التعليم والثقافة على إيد مؤسسه أحمد إبراهيم، وأطلق عليه اسم يعبر عنه: نهضة مصر. مجموعة شركات كانت ولا زالت بتقدم كل الحلول اللي تقدر من خلالها تحقق رسالتها من تعليم مستمر، ترفيه، ونشر ثقافة لكل مرحلة عمرية ولكل جيل على حسب احتياجاته. ومع كل جيل جديد بتظهر أفكار وحلول مختلفة.
مجال الإديوكيشن تكنولوجي مجال خصب جدا، واحنا ما بدأنا
كان مفيش حد تقريبا. داليا محمد إبراهيم، مؤسس ورئيس مجلس إدارة نهضة مصر ريادة الأعمال ادفنتشرز. أنا كنت بعمل الماجستير بتاعي في الجامعة الأمريكية في Executive MBA، وأثناء ده اتعرفت على الإيكو سيستم بتاع الانتربرينورشيب أو عالم ريادة الأعمال، وطلب مني إن أنا أكون منتور. فأول مجموعة كنت منتور ليهم كانوا داخلين مسابقة، خدت تجربة المنتورشيب وسبحان الله يعني فازوا من أول مسابقة، فاداني امل كبير قوي ان يعني ده انا لازم اكمل في المشوار ده كجزء من مسؤولياتي المجتمعيه يعني. وبعدين لما دخلت عالم الانتربرينورشيب اكتر او رياده الاعمال، اكتشفت ان العالم ده جميل جدا ويستحق ان احنا نفكر فيه بشكل مختلف. ممكن جدا نهضه مصر تساعد الشباب الجميل اللي موجود ده اللي عنده افكار رائعه، نختار الشباب الكويسين ونقف معاهم ونساعدهم من ناحيه ماليه ومن ناحيه فنية ومن ناحية تانية ان احنا نعرفهم على السوق اكتر. فلقيت ان ليه لا.
5 سنين من تأسيس ادفنتشرز قدرت فيهم تكون الأسرع نمواً في الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا. قدمت فيهم كل صور الدعم اللي بتحتاجها الستارت ابس في مجال تكنولوجيا التعليم من خلال 3 برامج أساسية: Incubation, Acceleration, Direct Investment. كل برنامج فيهم مصمم علشان يقدم الدعم لرواد الأعمال بناءً على احتياجاتهم في كل مرحلة من مراحل الشركة. مش بس الدعم المادي، لكن كمان مساعدتهم بشبكة علاقات قوية واستشارات من خبراء في التعليم من داخل نهضة مصر وخارجها. ده غير فرص انتشار وشراكات تساهم بشكل كبير في سرعة نمو شركتهم. وصلنا لأكثر من 1300 ستارت اب. اتخرج من برنامج الاحتضان والتسريع أكثر من 66 ستارت اب، هدفهم خدمة قطاعات التعليم المختلفة. استثمرنا في 13 ستارت اب مختلفين قادرين يغطوا قطاعات التعليم المصنفة من جانب HolonIQ، واللي منهم Digital Content, Online Learning, Management System, Workforce وSkills, Language Learning وSTEM. قدرنا نخلق أكتر من 1400 وظيفة بشكل مباشر من خلال اللي اسمه 5 سنين من ادفنتشرز. خلقنا فرص، مهدنا الطريق لأفكار علشان تطلع للنور، وقدمنا الدعم لكيانات ناجحة علشان تحقق أهداف أكبر. 5 سنين ولسه مكملين في تحقيق رؤية بتركز على تقديم الدعم الكامل لمجال تكنولوجيا